like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of November 19th, and it's also a meeting of the City Council acting as the Housing Authority. If you would please stand for Pledge of Allegiance, and Ryan Montgomery will lead us in the pledge.
Right hand over your heart. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you would stand, let's have a few moments of silence for all of the victims of the Malibu, or Woolsey and Hill and Paradise fires. I know many of us were talking, when you see something like a whole community, a whole city being wiped out, of course, it brings it very close to home, because we're all in this close-knit community. So our hearts go out to all of those folks. And also a moment to say a prayer for Brendan Regan, who was in the hospital. Be seated, please. And if we could please have the roll call.
Councilmember Albers?
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Here.
Councilmember Olson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy? Here. Mayor Marshall?
Here.
And for the record, we have Elizabeth Hull this evening as our legal counsel.
Yes, thank you, and welcome, Elizabeth. We're going to take our presentations out of order. We're going to start with our Community Service Department volunteer, Ryan Montgomery, and Dan will do the introductions.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council and the community. Wanted to spend just a couple minutes before we get too far into the heaviness of the meeting to talk about some of the fun we're having in recreation. And as we're doing this, we're going to challenge you to a little Lego contest. So you need to kind of pay attention. I've got a handful of Legos. We're going to do a quick judging afterwards. It's probably not going to look like this in the 3 minutes, but let's see how close we can get. So go. Open your bags and go. Lego Club was the vision of Ryan Montgomery. I think you all know Ryan in the community.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times he chased me down and going, we've got to have a Lego Club, we've got to have a Lego Club, when is the Lego going to start? And so in January of this year, we started the Lego Club. We've had 4 sessions. The sessions run anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. I think we might have had a 12-week session in there. And we get anywhere from 15 to probably 40, 45 kids in a 2-hour block of time on Sundays. So been a lot of fun. Ryan has been the inspiration for it. And I want to turn it over to him to talk a little bit about what he's doing on the daily with the Lego Club.
The Lego Club itself has been a huge success. I want to thank Dan personally and the City Council. Thank you for having the Lego Club. It's just been a huge success, and all the kids down there, they have an incredible time. And I want to thank Dan again personally.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ryan, thank you.
That's so awesome. And yes.
Ryan's got big plans with this. He's got a bridge over the mainland with Legos. He's got probably I think we're going to talk about the runway up to the airport could probably be done with Legos. Our housing problems could be done with Legos. So in token of that, and if you see here, he's donned with some ribbons, and those were Special Olympic tennis ribbons for the Special Olympics program he's been in over the last 10-week period of time. But in appreciation for everything he's done, he is wearing a Lego Drywall Incorporated. And if I get the story right, it was somebody that came from over town who's a contractor. Yes. Lego must be the last name, and that's as close to a Lego Club shirt we could find him. So in appreciation for all he's done, you have an official Lego Club shirt. How's that? I like that. And kind of a sad story. As much as he likes Legos, he has never been to Legoland. And we've taken donations just in general over the course of the program, and we're able to come up with enough funds to get you 3 tickets to Legoland.
Oh, that's awesome.
I got to spend a little bit of time with Mom and Dad, or Special Olympics this past week, and I think we're going to have a tough time getting Dad over there. I think Mom is willing to go, and you might have to bring a friend or something. But Ryan, thank you for everything you do in regards to the LEGO program.
Thank you. All right.
Not movable.
They're still building. I got too excited.
No, I do not want to play with Legos all night because I'm not good at this at all.
Okay. All right, my renewable energy plant.
Oh, boy. Oh, okay. Yeah, the packages are different. Okay, and number 2, presentation?
Oh, this isn't your department head report, Dan.
Do we have sculptures? What do we have? Ryan, you want to come up here for a quick judging? Sorry. We'll make this quick. What do we have?
I built a new airport building with a lookout tower and glass enclosure for Justin.
Hernandez.
And it's a movable office on this little platform here. And then since the military is coming, I went ahead and built us a bunker. Oh my gosh.
Councilman Hernandez.
Whatever I can get together.
Okay.
Whatever it clip in.
Mayor. You have a...
You know, I see y'all work so hard, so I really didn't want to put much effort into this because I really would like one of you other ones to win.
Councilmember Olson, you're going to take yours home and play with them?
Yeah, what is
Oh, look at that.
Oh,
He used
we've got
almost every
something there.
piece.
I have no idea.
Okay.
None.
Pam's got a good one.
Councilmember Albert.
I have a renewable energy plant with a solar and windmill.
Nice. Ron, I'm going to leave this one up to you. We got to make a decision.
I think.
I think they're all winners.
Oh.
Wow, you should go into politics.
Pass it along.
Thank you. Oh, gosh.
Thanks, Dan. That's too funny.
Our second presentation this evening is Tony Budrovich from the Catalina Island Conservancy, and he has a whole slew of people with him. I don't know if he's going to introduce them all or not, and this is about the new project at the airport.
So I'm going to go through and tell you a little something going on in the community. I thought it was nice I had the chance to present to the mayor, one of the council members, and Denise, so they are somewhat informed, but I thought it was a good chance to have the rest of the city and council and community know about the project. The clicker is not moving. Okay. Thank you. So anyway, the Catalina Island Airport in the Sky, we're going to be doing a runway repair to that. And this is a project that's been talked about for many years. So for about 8 years, we've been working with the Cal Department of Transportation Aeronautics. Justin, who runs our airport, who's here tonight, he's gone through these inspections on an annual basis. The difficulty with the airport, it's not a moneymaker. It's there really for the community more than the Conservancy. And I'm very happy to report we have board support to move forward on a project that's quite instrumental both to the Conservancy and the Catalina Island. So we'll talk about that in a moment. As we move forward, the airport in the Sky is privately owned by the Conservancy. It's fee simple land. We are a 501c3 nonprofit charity. It's serving as a public airport. It allows anyone who wants to land there, obviously not jets. It's a prop or dual prop type of a situation with a 3,000-foot long runway. We have over 7,000 aircraft that land there a year. Sometimes people don't realize the volume of what goes on at the airport. It is the primary spot for U.S. mail, for UPS packaging, Federal Express, DHL, those type of things. 4 million pounds of freight come through that airport a year, and of that, I'd say 99.9% comes to Avalon. So it is a very busy spot. It's a key infrastructure area for pilots, bikers, cyclists, campers, eco-tourists. A great place to grab a bite to eat if you're ever at the airport grabbing a cookie or a lunch. It's a critical infrastructure piece for the city of Avalon and the residents and businesses around, and so we just thought it was an important move to try to do everything we could to keep that going. It's also a pivotal U.S. Coast Guard and Los Angeles County Emergency Logistics Center, so the airport building turns over. Last time it was used was the fires on the island. We hope not to use it for those things, but if something catastrophic happened on the mainland, we're far enough away and with perfect sight vision back to the mainland, that would be the communications point. The runway project is, we're basically repairing the runway that's there. It's staying the same width, the same length. We're working obviously with all the normal entitlements to get through the permitting process. The runway requires significant infrastructure improvements just because of its age. It's about 80 years old. And for an inch of asphalt on an airport like that, where 2 hills were knocked down to create one long pathway with some say a hump in the middle. The hump was purposeful to land a DC-3 because it's a slowing effect as you go uphill. But we're keeping everything the way it is, the angles, the shapes, and we're putting in a new concrete runway. And we're doing that at about a $5 million cost. So just to have an idea of the magnitude of this project, it's going to be a big deal for us and the community. We're starting to work in December. We encourage both city staff, council, mayor, and the community to come up to the airport, maybe grab a lunch at the DC-3 grill, but just look at the great work by the military. And I'm going to talk about a timeline in a moment, because most of their work starts in January. And it's the Department of Defense's Office of the Assistant Secretary of Defense, Office of the Innovative Readiness Training Program, IRT. So there's a lot of acronyms you start to learn. Tim on our staff, because of his Army background, was very helpful in letting us know how all these acronyms work, but we're starting to get them. And I wanted to just show you, there's a variety of divisions involved here. So there's 1 MEF, that's who is taking the principal on this project, 3rd MAW, the MWSS 373, that's the Marine Wing Support Squadron. Those are the actual Marines that will be on the airport doing their job. They're coming from Miramar, just so you have an idea, but also Camp Pendleton will be represented well. And we do have a Navy Seabee coming out of Point Hueneme up north. The Conservancy is basically handling all the pre-engineering and all the work that gets the airport ready. Lenny on our staff, I'll introduce in a moment. He'll be project managing this for the Conservancy. So to give you an idea, coming through 2 harbors, we're bringing in about 2,700 cubic yards of concrete, about 25,000 20-foot lengths of rebar, obviously all the shovels and rakes and fuel and everything else that takes that has a need, and we're using all non-potable water for this project, so it is a project that works within the Avalon infrastructure. The military's been doing a variety of training exercises. They're making sure they know exactly what to do. 3,000 feet's a lot of concrete to put down. They're going to do it on a pretty long basis, over about 38 days. They're going to be laying the runway. Has a lot of cold joints through it that are done purposely so expansion can take place and things like that. It gives them readiness training. So if there was an emergency in a foreign country or a place that doesn't have an airport, if they had to go in and fix infrastructure, the airport has not been building airports. They've been building repairs to existing airports. So this is absolutely ideal conditions. And the good and bad in Avalon, it's a little more difficult to build here. You're going up the side of a hill. We're in a remote location. There's no Home Depot down the block, although there is a hardware store. All of that infrastructure is great training for the military. So they looked at our project. We had a win-win where they said, this is strategically great for us, and the Conservancy said, this is an opportunity that we'll never get again, and we want to work with you. So it's been a few years working on it, but it's coming together. I'd like to bring up Tim Kilpinski. Tim is our Chief Operating Officer. He's doing basically all the major projects of the Conservancy Tim has to do with. You want to come up to the front? And then Lenny Alter, Director of Construction Management, so he'll be the guy at the airport 7 days a week making this thing move forward. Cynthia Fogg is not here. She's in our Long Beach office, but she's handled all of our project management, getting all the paperwork and details moving, and giving reminders to each one of us on what we need to do. And Justin Bolin runs the airport as the airport manager, and again, he lives and works up at the airport, but he's there making sure all the infrastructure works. And then, Tim, if you wanted to tell a little bit about the gentlemen that are here.
So there's, like we said, we had folks from the CVs from Camp Pendleton, and it was their engineer, the professional engineer that is cross-attached over to a unit down at Pendleton. And he's in that picture. It's a lieutenant in the Navy, as 03, relative to the Marine captains. And that's Lieutenant Saul Perez. And then we had the other folks up there, Christopher Flood, Captain Flood. He is their logistics support officer and did a lot of the coordinating to get all the money lined up, to get all the logistics. They kept calling everything a bomb. They want to know everything about when's your bomb. And I'd never heard that acronym, and it's building of materials. So they're all about these bombs, and there's just this list of materials. And then, but the nice thing is we got to meet the company commander that's going to be running the unit, and that's Captain Nicole Stockholm. So it's going to be a female captain up there at the runway running all the engineers that are doing the work.
Great.
The project schedule, any you want to talk a little bit about that? Sure.
December 10th, we'll be closing, or 9th, we'll be closing the runway. We'll be using the taxiway for the flying boats, anybody with commercial license, so we can keep the town, especially at Christmas time with all the packages and such coming in. We'll be doing some preliminary future conduit going across the runway so that we don't have to saw cut and dig it up later when we need to get some electric on the other side of the runway. So we're doing that the first week. All of our erosion control measures will be done that week. The second week of, the week of the 17th, we'll be doing, the contractor will be coming over and doing the grinding up of the runway and mixing all the materials up to an 8-inch base for the getting ready for the concrete. The military will be sending all their equipment over on the 17th, 18th of December also, and everything will be staged at the airport prior to the holidays. After the 1st of January, there'll be the first contingent of military will be coming over, getting all the everything set up in preparation of when the rest of the crew comes over to start the work. There'll be about 3 weeks of grading and compaction, and then as you're moving down the runway, we'll start working on forming, setting rebar, then pouring the concrete. So it'll be a movement down the runway, and we'll be done by the end of March, and be open, and we're scheduled to have it open. I think it's the 15th of April. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
Well, we'll be seeing you. I guess the only place we'll see you is if we go to the airport, right?
That is true. So I just wanted to let you know, I mentioned this is a $5 million project. I wanted to introduce Kelly Johnson. Kelly is the chairman of the board of the Conservancy. She was involved in every step of this from an awareness and support standpoint. She happens to work a lot with airplanes and aeronautics, so this was a strong suit for her. And I think I wanted to bring Kelly up at this point. Oh, she's already here.
He's quick.
Thank you. Good evening. I don't know anything about building runways.
No.
Okay, we know how to make parts.
Oh, okay.
I'm here on behalf of the Board of Directors for the Conservancy, and I wanted all of you to know that the board unanimously and enthusiastically supports this project. As Tony mentioned, we believe that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And given the history of the airport with the military, going back, I think, to World War II, we couldn't ask for better partners. The team has been working really, really hard behind the scenes to make this become a reality, and we're super, super excited about it. We believe it's a win-win for everyone. For the military, it gives them real-world training. For the Conservancy, we don't have to do all of the heavy lifting because, contrary to what a lot of people think, The mission of the Conservancy is all about conservation, education, recreation, but in addition, we are responsible for more than 80% of this island, and the airport falls within that, being one of our biggest assets. So we feel that it's a really great win for the Conservancy, but more importantly, it's a great win for the community, all the communities of Catalina. The board had the opportunity to meet the officers Buchanan, Perez, and Flood at our October 19th board meeting. I can assure all of you that we are in very competent hands. You couple their capabilities with the fantastic team that Tony just introduced, and we are extremely confident that this will be a successful mission. Obviously, there's going to be some disruptions, and the Conservancy team is going to do all they can to mitigate those disruptions. We're hoping that the city and the communities of Catalina will get behind this project and be as excited about it as we are, because we think this is a tremendous, awesome opportunity. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
So just to close it out, so the airport's going to remain open as far as the buildings up there every day of the week. That will continue as it normally does. The runway will shut down. The first day it will not be open is the 10th of December, and that's because we have to do our pre-work. At that point, we're still allowing commercial flights like flying boats, so that we don't interrupt, especially the holiday traffic of all the packages, emergency supplies, hospital drugs, all that type of stuff that will continue to land on a daily basis, coordinated by Justin and Lenny, but they'll work with the military, clear the runway, drop a plane in, get the stuff off of it, and then move on. So we're trying to be as accommodating to all the needs as possible. The flying boats, as I said, will continue their deliveries. Airport landings will be restricted, but not closed, just restricted to the commercial flights that are necessary. We hope that as these troops come to the island, you give them a hello and a thank you. These are people that are working hard all over the world. I think Catalina is probably the nicest environment they've been in quite some time, and I'm looking forward to welcoming them there. And we do have some troops that are going to be on the island over the holidays, so if you see them in town or whatever, that's probably their most leisurely days, that only one or two will be at the airport, the other two will be walking around. You'll be best able to tell by the haircut they're wearing, because they'll be in plain clothes when they're in town. They are not coming to town with weaponry. That's something that always gets asked. So they're coming to town to do a project, but because they're in the great island of Catalina Island, they feel safe, and they'll do their normal process. We call this project a public-private partnership. I'm sure you're used to those type of things. It's a very patriotic atmosphere, like Kelly had just mentioned. They're wonderful people, and I wish I had their posture and speaking ability, but they're so well integrated into the sort of military aspect that we're very impressed with that. We think it's an immediate return on investment to the community. They're instantly going to have a runway that lasts another 75 or 100 years. We are working with, obviously, the scientists to make sure the island is protected through the entire process, and that the emergency services are continue to run up at the airport. So with that, thank you very much, and I wanted just any questions, anything that we can help you understand?
Well, explain to the community about their living arrangements.
So they're going to be living up at the airport, and we're probably going to pick up some rooms in town because they want a few of the people to be able to enjoy a day off. The normal schedule would be they will be off on Sundays. They work every other day of the week. They usually work 12 or 14 hours a day, so they have long days. When they come to town, they'll be coming on their casual time off. I think, like I said, the only day you're going to see large numbers of them is on Sundays. The Conservancy will be their transportation pool, getting them into town. If it rains or there's an inclement weather issue, they're going to switch days off. So the only time it won't be on Sundays is if they have to switch days. The only day that they're officially off, I believe, during the time that they're here is President's Day. So that Monday is the only day they're off in addition to the normal Sundays. And they have their hygiene area, they're doing their laundry, they're doing everything else, again, with non-potable water. They'll be living at the airport. The part of the training is they do all their cooking and galley up there. And Kelly wanted to step back up.
I just feel so passionate about these men and women that are going to be doing this and the sacrifices that they have made for all of us. And they've requested that they, get some support from the community. So we're not really quite sure how they're going to be arriving, whether they're going to be coming in on Catalina Express, either a CAT or here, or if they're going to be flying in military transportation. But if we have the opportunity to welcome them and say, thank you, we're so excited to have you, that would be a really great beginning. And those that are coming into town on their day off, I know they would love to experience, whether it's zip lining or going to our beautiful movie theater. So whatever we can do to help them experience island life here on Catalina would be great. And I was told that there will be 4 military personnel here during the holidays because their equipment will be here and their housing materials, so they're going to be looking out for them. If any of you are interested in inviting them to your home for a holiday meal, that would be extremely appreciated as well. So I think we just need to make them feel a part of our family here while they're here. Thank you.
Great. And the other way we're going to know besides their haircut is when they go, yes, ma'am, and yes, sir.
They,
I forgot the most important thing. So they're going to be eating, what are they called, MRIs?
MREs.
You're ready to eat, but like big fats, right?
Yeah.
So if anyone's interested in delivering baked goods or fresh fruit or any kind of comfort food, but
Speak into the mic.
oh, I'm sorry. So if anyone is interested in delivering any comfort food, whether it's baked goods or fresh fruits or whatever, you can do that on your own or through the Conservancy, and we would be happy to deliver those comfort foods to them as well.
Right. And I think you said there'll be between 100 and, what's the contingent?
I can't give you the exact number because of the, but it's less than 150, more than 100.
Right, so if you're going to make baked goods, you got to make a lot of them.
Right. And about mid-project, they'll be turning over a lot of the people, so an extra group gets trained, but the total number working on the field will always be between that 100 and 150.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We're excited.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
That's exciting.
I guess I'll have to go get my pilot's license now, huh? That's a scary thought. Never mind. Okay, we have our third presentation.
We have Jim Lujohan, our CEO of the Catalina Island Chamber of Commerce. He's giving his annual audit report.
Oh, that's that trick.
Technology. All right, well, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I have been given a limited time period, so I'm going to do my best to whip through this really quickly. Tonight, I'm just going to hit a few of the high points on our fiscal year and then the audit, and then I'll take questions from you guys.
Great.
So therefore, just a quick reminder is our mission statement: to attract visitors and advocate for commerce on Catalina Island. Of course, about 90% of what I'll talk about tonight is the first part of that, attracting visitors, because tourism promotion is the term of art in the city ordinance that brings the funding to our organization. So for the fiscal year just ended, we received $1.2 million in a round number. That's the adjusted income from the city. And it was prior to an end-of-year was prior to an end-of-year true-up 1.178, and we spent 1.266. So we exceeded what we got either before or after the adjusted annual. For the fiscal year just started, we have been allocated, I'm sorry, this thing seems to be on auto. I'm not doing that. $1,145,100. So we'll, that's what you'll see as the year goes on with our current year budget. So just some high points. We had about 1.5 million visitors to our website this year. That was pretty much even with the prior year. 1.1 million users of the website. This year, big growth in our blog posts. Last year we only had 9, this year 26. I don't know what is going on with this thing. It's on hyperspeed. And we're static at about 54% mobile use after me reporting for the last 3 years that mobile use was way, way up. This year it kind of arrested. Combined in our Facebook channels, we have about 90,000 followers currently, or did as of the end of the fiscal year. And there you can see the breakdown on who those Facebook users are. For Instagram, we're still lagging a little bit where I hope we should be, but as of the end of the fiscal year, at about 2,300, we have actually almost doubled that already in the new fiscal year. We continue to own the destination page on TripAdvisor. We do that not only to be a great resource for people that are using that as a place to look for reasons to visit the island, but also to keep competing destinations from advertising on the destination page. And I won't read through all these numbers, but there's some other ways that we're reaching out to the visiting and potential visiting public with e-blasts and through our database. As long as I've been on the island, we've been putting a lot of effort into group sales and marketing, so we generated 212 RFPs for group nights. Had they all booked, it would have been nearly 6,000 rooms. Of course, they don't all book in the year that you're working with them. It's often a longer window than that. We attended our 5 tried and true travel and concierge shows once again this year. We distributed 65,000 hard copies of our visitor guide this past fiscal year. And as Traveler Assists go, we answered 12,800 phone calls, assisted nearly 50,000 walk-ins in the visitor center. And we had launched last year, I told you about Ask Lena, which is a email or digital character that answers people's questions online, and we're averaging 8 calls or 8 requests per day there. For the fiscal year, we hosted 33 members of the media. Our peak month for hosting them was March of this year, and we issued 22 media releases. And not purely tourism promotion, but another way that we work closely with the city is in processing film permits and hosting film scouts. This year we processed 24 permits, up from 19 the prior year. Hosted 4 scouts, and this thing just has a mind of its own, that generated 40 days of filming, and 316 crew members came to town, most of whom spent the night. So as you probably already know from your own internal reporting, but members of our audience may not be aware, transient occupancy tax for the fiscal year did end up 2.8% at $5.3 million. Occupancy was up by 2.3% at 64.2%, still below that ideal number of 70% annualized that we want to achieve as a community. Cruise ship wharfage was way up, but that's a little bit misleading just to look at the numbers because the city did raise the wharfage rate last year, and passenger count was actually down fractionally. Cross-channel wharfage was up 2.9%, cross-channel passenger count 2.79. Sales tax was also up significantly, and there's been a little footnote every month from the city about some changes in how that was accounted for at the state level, I believe, and so I'm just sharing that footnote today. And our total visitor count was just over 1 million people. I don't have a year-over-year comparison with the exact same apples to apples because, fortunately, over the course of the year this year, we added Arrivals by Air as a count, and I didn't have a full prior fiscal year of Arrivals by Air. So by next year, when I'm here, I'll have a good year-over-year for you on that. So, according to the auditors, the program services, or that for which we spent the transient occupancy tax, totaled $1,266,705. TOT allocated to us was $1,210,843 after the year-end adjustment, which was $33,020. The prior year adjustment that we had to pay back was $33,494, so you can see those two just about cancel one another out. And for the fiscal year just started, since we're almost 5 months into it or 6 months into it, I thought I'd just give you a few of the highlights of things that we are working on here. We just hosted earlier this month our marketing conference with Marion Carson. If you don't recognize that name, they're the advertising agency under contract with Visit California. Very prestigious organization. We're awaiting the outcome of their reporting. We are planning a board retreat for January. We will launch a redesign of our website in February, our new visitor guide will be out in January. We're continuing to move forward on mobile visitor services, hopefully by spring. We're working with the city on a sentiment survey, and we are about to launch, right when I get to the nice word that I want to really dwell on, we're about to launch a new program that's just in its very beginning stages called Care for Catalina, or Catalina Cares, kind of playing with two names, that will be a program meant to foster responsible tourism, community cleanup efforts, and community pride, all kind of under one banner. We are continuing to work on increasing our group sales and marketing partnerships, and we will continue to work with Visit California on some of their events. In fact, year-to-date with Visit California, we've already enjoyed a host of things. We attended the Destination Day at their offices in Sacramento and presented to over 150 members of their team. We participated in the San Francisco Media Day, and Catalina was included in sites that they filmed for their 2018 television commercials, which are about to go out globally. We continue to grow our committee structure and look for opportunities for members of the public to join us in working on the cruise committee, the membership committee, the marketing committee, and the group sales and marketing committee. We're working with the Conservancy and the Island Company as need be to have a small pilot sporting event come to us this year in 2019 called Otillo. It's a swim and run event that was born in Sweden, and it will be taking a small step in 2019 and then a bigger step in 2020 as a pre-Olympic series of events on the island. And of course, we'll continue to work with the city with regard to the 4th of July. The slide that just doesn't want to stay there is all of my board members and staff, a few of whom are in the room. I saw Tim is a member of our board, and who's the chair of our board. Dave is our CFO, and Kathleen is our director of sales and marketing. I think all of you know them, but some members of the audience at home may not. And with that, I will do any questions. And did I make 10 minutes?
I have a question for you, Jim. When you talk about in your slide hosting media, how do you calculate your media visits? Where does that information come from, and what all encompasses your media hosting?
I'm counting their actual media that we personally worked on. We escorted them, or we provided them materials to allow them to visit the community in person here.
So in a case where maybe the Catalina Express is working with someone in the media and they're working with a hotelier and a restaurateur, that they're not really working with the chamber,
then that would not be in that total, but if they overlap with us, it would be.
So is that something that could be added? Because I think there's actually quite a bit more media hosting happening that maybe
there
the
definitely is. I didn't want to take
hosting.
credit for more than we had actually touched, so I was trying to count only our real touches. But absolutely, there's a lot more hosted media going on.
Great. Does the community have any questions? No? Well, thank you, Jim, and I think you stayed within your 10 minutes, and it was very, very thorough in my mind, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Did we actually get minutes from the last meeting? We did? Minutes from the last meeting?
No, we did not. I don't think so. Okay, I just wanted to see if I'd lost my mind for a minute.
And do we have any announcements or written communications? I guess I should be looking at Gabby for those, right?
We have none.
Okay. Department head reports.
Good evening, Bob Greenlaw, Director of Public Works. So this month we're starting work on the Casino Way restrooms, remodeling that will bring those up to ADA compliance. It should take a couple months from start to finish. It'll be a combination of training with our own Public Works staff, but then also bringing in subcontractors for specific trades. The shower restrooms will be identified to provide service as people need to think the bathroom is open. There'll be signs that will point them and direct them to the shower restrooms, and they'll remain open to provide those services during this remodel, during this lower part of the season. The development impact fees, we've compiled the comments from the stakeholders, and the info will provide adjustments to the report, and we're adding a category for potable water projects. So the same projects that we have applied for grants. Okay, so you'll see that come within the modified report. The Beacon Hill Apartment Stair Lift, the contract award was given the green light by CDBG to go ahead with the project, and we are working with the contractor to get the contract executed, and I've requested a tentative schedule from the contractor.
Great,
So by next meeting, I should be able to provide that schedule. So it sounds like it's moving forward at the pace we need to move it. Okay, and then public work activities on the waterfront. So we're doing Christmas decorations right now, so you'll see that the lights are going up and get those turned on right after Thanksgiving. We're rehabilitating the tile on the serpentine wall benches, so you can see we've been down at the south end and we're working our way north on those. And then our irrigation system is being rehabilitated, so you're starting to see where we're actually getting some water on those stretches of Casino Way that were looking pretty bad. And so now that is automatic, so we have the ability to both water it with our water buffalo that comes in our big F550 truck, but also it can be automatic. And so once we get that watering system finished, and that has been a priority task, we start getting plant material back in there and get that looking better. So we're working on that too. Any questions?
Did I see a couple of holes, you called it Muscle Beach, after the guys had already left with the project on South Beach?
No, there's some still some right at the wall there. There's still some what we call potholes. So those were investigating where the utilities were, and I still needed to tie those out. They'll be covered back up. So even though they look like they that it had been washed out, no.
Okay.
Okay.
And on that same project, there is a second phase that'll involve bringing in rocks.
Yeah, there's actually an item on, so I'll save that for the item. And it's going to be a quick report, but yes. Okay?
Wait, I just have two quick comments, not questions, but I know I sent Bob and you an email directly, but I just wanted to say that I personally really appreciated all of the upgrades that the Public Works Department's been doing along Crescent, including the retiling of the benches, the painting, and the serpentine wall work. That we've had so many emergencies over the last 6 months that I know your team has been inundated with that, but it was really nice to see, everybody looking at the little stuff too and still continuing on. So it looks really great. And then I also wanted to say a great big thank you for, I think it was within 24 hours, Public Works patched some holes in the street at Beacon and Sumner that were a hindrance for some of our ADA accessibility. So thank you very much to your team.
And I'm letting staff know those things as you let me know. And I shared that with the boys out there that were doing the repairs on the benches and also where we made those repairs at Beacon, and they appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. The Harbor Department's moving forward with their, obviously, winter maintenance. We were able to get another dinghy dock alongside the pier this week because it seemed like every other day we're pulling floats off the pier because of the Santa Ana conditions. But it's the nature of the beast this time of year. And I'll be back later to talk about the Float One project and trying to move forward on that. And our personnel have been going to trainings. We had 2 guys go to rescue boat handling training, and then we also had interim assistant harbor master Oren Karstaffen and Steve Carroll go to a boating and waterways class up at Lake Castaic, which was surprising that they can get through 101 during all that fire. So unless you have a question for me, we're moving forward. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Fire Chief?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City staff. Just briefly, I wanted to follow up on the runway project that the Conservancy talked about. They had a stakeholders meeting, and emergency services was included in that. City Fire, County Fire, and the Sheriff's Department were all part of those meetings, and we've got a great emergency response plan if there's any issues that arise with the Marines or sailors up there. That went very well. There were also some drills that were scheduled to participate. We were scheduled to participate in last week that involved the hospital, county fire, Baywatch Avalon, LA County, and the state. All that was put on hold because of actual fires and emergencies on the mainland. There wasn't time to drill. That'll be rescheduled at a future date in case you hear about that. With that, unless you have questions for me, that's all I have to report.
Good. Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
Good evening, Captain John Hawking. I just wanted to let you know the Sheriff's Department has been on 12 and 12 emergency schedules because of the fires up north. However, it has not affected Avalon Station. We haven't lost any deputies to respond just based on our number of deputies here on the island. And the Sheriff's Department's received complaints at Machine Gun Park regarding people drinking alcohol in public, smoking marijuana in public, and possession of methamphetamine. So the deputies have been doing extra patrol checks through there. Yesterday, 2 people were arrested, one for possession of narcotics and the other for under the influence of narcotics. So I just wanted to remind the public, it's illegal to smoke marijuana in public, illegal to drink in a public park like that, and obviously illegal to possess illegal narcotics. That goes without saying. And that's all I have from the Sheriff's Department. If anybody has any questions. Yes, sir.
For the last 3 weeks in the Islander, nothing's happened.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Nothing's happened?
No, what happened was I was on vacation.
Oh.
And I'm the one that writes those articles. So I put 3 crime prevention type helpful tips, especially regarding credit cards and fraud, that basically it's everywhere. So I'm trying to be proactive and do that. Starting this week, you will see the regular article.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Welcome back.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Just a brief update. We are anticipating that both Vons and the Trailhead will be requesting their certificate of occupancies within the next few weeks. So as part of their receiving their COO, we'll be going over all of their conditions of approval and mitigations that they need to meet in addition to whatever the building inspector is requiring. One of the conditions for Vons related to how they would handle the shopping carts. The city did not require an electronic barrier to prevent the carts being taken off the property. Vons has proposed that they will retrieve carts taken off the property twice a day, and the carts will have a phone number on the cart that can be called to request that the cart be picked up. The Atwater may be working extended hours inside only in order to make their hoped-for opening date prior to Memorial Day 2019. If this extension occurs, and the city manager has not yet approved the extension, but it would be conditioned that no complaints are received from residents or neighboring hotels. I want to remind the public that the city does not restrict working on holidays, so it is possible that some projects will be continuing to work on Thanksgiving Day. We will be having our first stakeholder meeting and outreach for our LCP update to address sea level rise in December. The exact date and times will be posted and published, and I'm hoping that the chamber will also include a link for us so that if any visitors or guests that wish to participate can do so. The Coastal Commission wants to make sure we include our visitors in our outreach as we address sea level rise. The Planning Commission will be reviewing an application for some changes at Scoops, the former location of C.C. Gallagher's, and the golf cart rental at the former Island Press building at our meeting in December. The exterior tile and the bank vault at the C.C.'s locations are proposed to stay, with some minor repair to the existing tile on the exterior. The Planning Commission scheduled our December meeting for December 5th, and we have also changed our meeting time to 5 p.m. for all future meetings. We are still working on the residential year-round inspection program. The mayor suggested that we limit our inspection list to the items noted in the tenant handbook, which is a little bit shorter list of things that we would need to inspect. That handbook has now been posted on the city website in both English and Spanish if anyone needs to review it, and we're hoping to have the inspection program back to you in December. I'm sad to report that Steve Corraleo will be leaving us. Steve has accepted a position with a much better commute. We have benefited from Steve's knowledge and experience for the past 3 years, and we will miss him greatly. Charles Abbott, our contractor for building inspector services, will be providing a qualified replacement. Steve's last working day in Avalon is this Wednesday, and we certainly hope to see him again as a returning friend. And that's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Are we going to lunch?
We thought we might try to do that, yeah.
Okay, let us know.
Okay.
And just one thing, and other people have questions, but about the Vons again, the whole issue of recycling or redemption, I thought that was...
The condition of approval says, and I'm going to paraphrase, that if they are subject to recycling under state law, then they would be required to accommodate recycling. Vons is allowed under state law to request an exemption from that requirement. It's my understanding they have requested that exemption. I have reached out to my contact to Cal Recycle, which I believe is the agency that grants that exemption, to find out exactly what they are requesting and can the city submit comments. I haven't heard back from them.
Would you please let us know, and if there's anything timely,
Right.
because I know that is something, if I can even write on it, because I could, but I think that's a concern about with the whole town. So
Right.
that's very important to us, and I'd hate to miss some deadline because we have to come back and discuss.
They have to request the exemption. It doesn't go into effect until 30 or 60 days after they request it. They currently have an exemption at the existing Vons store. They have to pay a fee for it.
I mean, I don't know if we
$100
can
or
be
something.
proactive, because we do have stuff, I'm sure there is stuff in our minutes that talks to recycling, and the desire of the planning commission members, I think, was for something like that, so.
And in the email that I received from Vons, where they advised me that they were applying for the exemption, they also stated that if the city wanted to sponsor a monthly recycling day or 1 quarter, or do it something in conjunction with the landfill, that they would be happy to participate in that.
I think what we're looking for is people to get their 5 and 10 cents back, right? That was kind of what I thought people wanted.
Well,
the ability.
Isn't it right now where CR&R, whatever they turn in, the funds that they receive for that goes to lessen the impact of the contract to us?
No, we get 50% back.
Oh, we get 50% back.
We get a check monthly.
But that's different than the CRV that's being collected from Vons, right? So we all pay the 10 cents per bottle or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then we don't know what Vons does with that money.
No, we don't know. They keep it.
No, they don't keep it. It goes to the distributor. It goes to the state. So you can read.
Amanda, when they apply for that exemption, they, in lieu of that, they pay something a day or a week, was it?
It's $100. I don't think it's a day. It may be a month. But they pay a certain amount in order to, as part of getting that exemption. Vons pays a fee to the state.
So the people that are in the trash cans now looking for recyclables, are they taking them over in suitcases? Because they're not able to get any CRV right here.
I have seen people on the boat with bags of cans.
That's what they're having to do.
I don't know what everyone is doing.
I know that that one school teacher, I can't remember her
Yes.
name, she took all the recyclables over town, got the money, and that's how she did the field trip.
Right.
Well, in Europe, you go to a market, and then right inside the front door of the market, there's a recycling machine.
Yeah.
It takes your bottles, takes your cans, reads the thing, gives you credit. Why can't we do something like that?
It's just a machine, yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about doing that. There was some concerns with the machines that take glass. You have to sort the glass and you get a higher payback on the glass if it's not mixed. The clear glass is separated from the green glass, from the brown glass. So it was a conversation a while back that we had about possibly doing those kind of machines, and due to cost or whatever, it never.
I mean, because but you're right. Over in Long Beach, you stick it in there, it comes out, and then you could either go to the grocery store right there and get the cash back, or you can apply it to your grocery bill.
And some grocery stores have a company that runs a recycling center in the parking lot. So that is an issue that we have yet to resolve.
Okay.
With funds.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Matt Baker, speaking on behalf of the Finance Department. Just wanted to provide council with a quick update regarding Host Compliance. That's our vendor that does our short-term vacation rental monitoring. We had a renewal clause in our contract, so we're still under contract with them. However, they did agree to work with us and had lowered the price down from $18,000 to $14,000 for this year. Internally in our department, we're making some changes to allow us to better monitor the short-term rental. So individuals with short-term rental should be seeing notices if they are out of compliance with either not having the business license or paying the TOT. My plan is to present to council at the second meeting in March an update on how that program is going, and that would allow council the opportunity to provide us with feedback before the renewal period comes in May again in 2019.
But pardon me, we haven't seen anything, have we? For the last year?
Council has not seen anything, no. They have, what they've done is we've provided them with the data we have of who has a business license and a CUP for a short-term rental. They've identified properties that are potentially out of compliance. The next step would be for us to reach out to those properties to let them know whether they need to get a license or go through the CUP process, in which case they should cease operating as a short-term rental. So they have fulfilled their end of the bargain, where the lack has been on our side in following up with the properties they've identified. So we are making some changes in our department. So hopefully I'll have an update for you, or I will have an update for you in March to show you what they've done.
How many properties have they identified?
So they've identified, so there's approximately 500 listings, and approximately, I want to say 250 unique properties, and about 100 of those are potentially out of compliance with either lack of a business license, lack of a TOT payment, or lack of a CUP. Again, though, that's using data that was provided back in late 2017, and so before acting on any of that information, we wanted to get them updated data. And just kind of internally how we've kind of tracked things hasn't made for an easy transition with how they need the data to run their searches. But we're making those changes, and so in March I should have an update for you on what we found.
So we had data as of late 2017, and now we're late 2018?
Yep.
I don't think there's that much difference in the data in 9 months, but I mean, without expressing too much frustration, that's a lot of money that we're paying for a contract, and that's a large number of properties out of compliance. I think we need to take that seriously, and I think we need to move on this long before March.
Yeah.
We've already paid the money to do this work.
We will be acting, we're working right now on it. My plan was to provide you with an update on what we found, but we will be sending out letters prior to March for properties that are out of compliance. I just wanted to get our changes in place, and that way I can show you what we've done and what the service has bought us before we're up for renewal.
Okay.
All right. And then today I sent over to Denise and Matt information that I received through my work on the County Commission on Local Government Services, because Airbnb has a program where they will enter into voluntary program where they collect the TOT based on where the property is located and turn it over to the city. So it's done automatically. So not all these properties are Airbnb, but percentage, when you look nationwide, that is the bulk of people that are doing it on their own. So that would be something that they'll be looking into as well.
Then update on the other TOT audit. Our vendor has identified 9 properties for additional audit procedures. The city will be sending out letters to the property selected next week. Our vendor will then be contacting them in early December with additional steps on the information they need. And right now, they are tentatively scheduled to come out in the 3rd week of January to do the on-site inspections of the hotels. From there, we should have an update in the middle of February with any findings they have.
That's just a random, or no? Or
It was a judgmental sample based on trends in their analysis for the information that the hotels are required to report to the city. So based on that, they made their selection of hotels for further review. And then lastly, on the 17 CAFR, I still don't have the draft CAFR. I was promised it this week, and I still don't, or last week, and I still don't have it. I've let them know our frustration, but Bob and I are working to draft the management discussion analysis section. So once we get the draft CAFR and have an opportunity to review it, again, the turnaround time should be relatively quick once we do receive that.
Okay. Any other
that's what I
questions
had.
of finance? We good? Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Not him again.
I'm just back up to have a runoff on this Lego competition. Get a finalist here. No, just real briefly. Thanksgiving holiday meals will be going out. Staff will be handing those out starting tomorrow. We have 40 families, thanks to the likes of BB&K, our legal counsel, for our sponsorship, the Rotary, Knights of Columbus, and maybe a partial list there, and we'll make sure we get everybody included in a final list that contributed to it. And then we're hoping to do 40 to 45 families as well for the Christmas holiday. Number 2, Santa's mailbox will be in the arcade. We'll have a local drop-off, direct line to Santa Claus here locally, and so that will go in the week after Thanksgiving as well. Bob touched on it. Some of the lights are going up for the holidays. The tree will go up Wednesday after Thanksgiving, so a week from Wednesday, as well as some of the activations we had last year, and we're planning on 2 or 3 more activations with some holiday displays this year as well. And then quick Vons update. The manager, Brian, was shooting to get all of the plastic out of the multi-use plastic bags out of the Vons sites by the opening of the new Vons, and I'm happy to say, I think it's down to just maybe the last of it, but they're pretty much going paper now, and the plan is to have paper at the new site throughout. So
Thank you.
kudos to Vons and what they're doing with that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Okay. Okay, we're through. Now we need city manager report.
I have nothing to report this evening.
Okay. City attorney?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Council member report.
It's cold in here.
As indicated, I attended the Commission Local Government Services. We received a report from the Chief Administrative Officer. The county's been looking at short-term rentals, and I've shared that report with the Planning Director and the City Manager and the Finance Department. We're going to wait to see what kind of ordinances they come forward with before we make any recommendations or changes on that. And our next topic is going to be autonomous vehicles. So that should be interesting, you know? Like,
Very much so.
should we be spending a lot of money on parking structures and ordinances and so forth? So it should be interesting.
Not that we're going to have one. I attended the National League of Cities convention in Los Angeles for a couple, 3 days. Kind of interesting. Elon Musk was there, and he was kind of, he talked for about an hour. He was kind of really cool, had it tacked together. The exhibit hall wasn't as impressive as the one for the California League of Cities. They had stuff that just didn't apply to us. I don't know why. But some of the seminars were interesting. I brought some stuff back for Denise and for Bob. I forgot to bring it tonight, so I'll bring it tomorrow.
Great.
I really have nothing, but I'd like to just want everybody to make sure they have a great holiday coming up. And then I know it's tough times for everybody, different people, but everybody have a great holiday. Just want everybody to have nothing to report.
And I'm going to report out before you because I know you wanted to talk about your trip a little bit.
Yes,
Okay.
great.
So I just wanted to report that we had kind of 2 small community garden meetings, and there were 5 of us that aren't gardeners there, so that makes a kind of interesting conversation. We don't know what we're talking about. But, and then we met with Micah. We measured the casita. We also made friends with Brad from...
Eucalyptus?
Well, he does eucalyptus, but Staying Green, that company, so he's willing to help, and he was great, and Dan and I met with him today. So and Dave was with the last meeting, so there was a discussion about having a meeting the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. So I'm going to be gone, but hopefully there'll be a little bit of movement there. I don't know, that's all I have.
Okay, so I have one update, and it got a stitch longer than a normal update just because I'm answering some questions to the community at the same time I'm giving my update. So the first week of November, myself, Jim Lutjohan from the Chamber of Commerce, and Buddy Wilson, who is a cruise ship liaison for the Chamber of Commerce, went to the annual Florida Caribbean Cruise Association conference representing Catalina Island. And with all the questions circulating around the conference and what we were doing, I wanted to give a little bit longer update. So we met formally with executives from 8 cruise lines during the conference: Carnival, Princess, Royal Caribbean, Holland America, Seabourn, Regent, Azamara, and MCS Cruises. The response to all things Catalina was extremely positive. Our main goals for attending the conference were: 1, to keep Catalina on the forefront of everyone's mind in the cruise industry; 2, maintain current relationships and build upon communications towards how we work together going forward; 3, introduce Catalina to new market opportunities; and 4, make new relationships with those not already aware of what Catalina has to offer. So our goal was not to introduce additional sailings per week, for example, another cruise ship day per week for the community, but it was to introduce the options of Catalina for additional annual sailings and excursions. For example, supplementing winter income with additional sailings for repositioning and weather-related itinerary changes. That, hey, we're Catalina, we're over here, we're available if you need to make a weather change. We also had wonderful opportunities to introduce Catalina as day trips for, or excursions and opportunities for ships that are docking in LA Harbor for the day. And then we thought it was also important to each of us to build new relationships with other cruise lines should the current ones change, of which we really began to do. More than half a dozen mentions by top executives in our meetings had made comments regarding the importance of having policymakers at the table. So that really spoke strongly to me, the number of times that it was mentioned that having policymakers and people who make decisions at the table, not just saying, hey, we're here, come see us, because that's what everybody's doing, but to actually really get into the meat and potatoes of the relationships between the cruise lines and the destination. So a contingent of Catalina was obviously important at the conference and very well received. It was really nice to have 3 of us sitting down at the table and having the executives going, wow, Catalina's on the map. So that was good. Overall, Catalina is highly ranked in satisfaction surveys, averaging 8.5 out of 10, and the comments were 99% positive. The areas that we lack are not having a terminal, a dock, or customs and vessel clearance available, which obviously gave us some thinking and talking points going forward. One notable mention was Carnival. The executive, Leon Sutcliffe from Carnival, was really interested in having a stronger direct relationship with city management. And also, we talked a little bit about communications between directly with city staff and the cruise ship before we communicate with vendors and operators on the island. So that was really nice to hear from them that they want to have relationships, stronger relationships with us as well. So the cost to send city representative was $1,400 and well worth every penny of it for Catalina. So there you go.
Very good. Any other items?
No, that's all I've done. That was a week. That was long.
Okay, thank you. All righty. Oral communication. This is an opportunity for people in the community to speak on items not on the agenda. You will be limited to 3 minutes and no action will be taken. And be sure to speak into the mic.
Hi, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for your hard work and all your time. And I just have another letter to the editor and on a little different tack than Cindy's. So I thought maybe you'd be interested. It was it goes like this. Dear editor, it was a stunning fall day in our little coastal village. The sun was warm, the water sparkling, smiling locals waved to each other, happy to have a well-deserved break from the onslaught of tourists. From our swimming hole at Casino Point, we gazed at the horizon and realized what was missing. Our strange feeling of contentment came from the uncommon view of our harbor, unblocked by a massive white wall of a cruise ship. Every year at this time, after a summer season of crowded weekends and Monday, Tuesday hordes, cruise ship repositioning suddenly takes over. New lines visit, new docking days are added, more ships on their way to winter dry dock. Our 2-day weekly cruise ship schedule becomes 3, sometimes 4, all magically orchestrated by the board of the Chamber of Commerce. Fall, coincidentally, is also the time of the Great Cruise Ship Conference in Florida, which local chamber members and politicians perennially attend. Close on the heels of this forum come the marketing articles in the Islander News, touting added cruise ship line opportunities or the possibilities for relocation stops. These promotions and letters include selected statistics. We are told that 18% of cruisers rent golf carts, while 60% go shopping. Data that does not say how much is actually spent, gained, or shoplifted. There is, of course, the seasonal wharfage fees of $600,000, but there was an omission, a little odd-known fact that $200,000 of the city's profit is returned to the Carnival lines. Avalon apparently is one of the few ports that does so. While the great promise of visitor returns is cited, it seems more likely that the savvy among them learn not to come back on a Monday or Tuesday. After all, the nix on Monday or Tuesday is a staple observation repeatedly made on social media, in Yelp and TripAdvisor. What the Chamber's rosy perspective unfailingly misses is the stress of overscheduling and over-tourism on our infrastructure, and the use of city water, trash, and sewage. The chief architect of the increasing cruise ship berths doesn't live here and would hardly notice the crowded streets and the increasing plastic on the landfill, or the smell of golf cart exhaust and the smoke sputtering out of the generators aboard ship. He never hears the common downtown comment, "I like coming out when there is no cruise ship." The ever-increasing cruise industry increasingly has its detractors. Worldwide, destinations are limiting visits or completely closing ports. Molokai, Hawaii refuses visits altogether, as do many of the Greek and Tahitian islands. Venice has realized the disturbance to their historic venue. Ibiza, Spain, curtailed cruise ship schedules through local control. UNESCO closed the usage of the port of Dubrovnik unless the numbers were managed. The quality of life, the character of towns, islands, and cities is at stake, as is the ecology of our oceans. Could we not all agree that 2 days a week of hosting floating cities is more than enough for our town, our harbor, and our quality of life? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello there. My name is Paul Birchall. I am the librarian at Avalon Library. Nice to meet those of you who I haven't met yet. I just wanted to remind everybody that our library will be closed on Thursday and Friday for Thanksgiving. We'll be open tomorrow, we'll be open Wednesday, we'll be open Saturday. We've got some great events coming up. On Tuesday, we are going to have a visit from the STEM Make-Mo service. That's a STEM day. We have a special librarian who's bringing a gigantic cargo of synthesizer robots, and the kids can come, and it's going to get very loud at the library. It will not be a quiet day at the library, but it'll be very enjoyable. On Wednesday, I'm going to hold a scrapbooking workshop. Just got some, bits of scrap and some paper and it'll be a nice, quiet, mellow, fun thing to do the day before the holiday. Thursday, Friday, as I said, we are closed. Saturday, I'm continuing our story time, Smarty Pants story time every morning, every Saturday morning at 10. It's becoming quite popular. About the reno, I have no new information about it. I do know the Board of Supervisors passed an increase for the amount of money. I'm not absolutely sure of the details of it. I know that came up early last week, so I think there is a plan in place. I haven't heard about it. I don't have a date for the closing. As of right now, I'm going to go ahead and plan December like it's a regular old month at a library with some events and fun things for people to do. And finally, I gave prizes to the winners of the library's bookmark contest. Four very happy young kids got prizes, and then I submitted the bookmarks onto the Board of Supervisors, who then judge it in a county-wide contest, and we'll see how that turns out in the months ahead. Once again, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for letting me be your librarian.
Thank you.
very much.
Thanks, Paul. Okay. Seeing no others, we will go to the consent calendar.
We have 5 items on the consent calendar this evening. The first one is minutes from the October 31st special meeting. Second one is warrants for a total disbursement of $1,126,990.63, and that's for the period of October 27th through November 9th. The third one is to authorize the city manager to approve an expenditure for a not-to-exceed amount of $105,000 to Al Larson Boat Shop to conduct repairs on float number 1 at the Cabrillo Mole. Number 4 is to adopt a resolution declaring the equipment listed as surplus property and to authorize the city manager to dispose of it in accordance with the city policy. Number 5 is to adopt 2 different resolutions, authorizing the city manager to serve as the director and the senior accountant as the alternate director to 2 different boards, the PARSAC board and the CalTIP board.
Council?
I'd like to pull item number 3, please.
Okay. Action on the others?
Move staff on 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Second. 1 is minutes that we don't...
There's no...
Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry,
Yes,
no
there
minutes.
is.
There's minutes.
Yeah, there were minutes. Just not from the last meeting.
I'll abstain for those minutes, but
It's
there are
on the,
minutes.
it's two-sided. It's on the other side.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
1, 2, 4, and 5, and there was a second?
Yes, there was.
Okay, call for the vote.
All ayes.
I do know with interest that we're getting rid of our snow plow.
How did we inherit a snow plow? Was that the plow?
The blade.
Okay. Item number 3.
Hello, Harbor Master. My first question is, how can Al Larson Boat Shop give a quote for services when they have not visually inspected the float to know exactly what they're doing?
Well, what I've done is I've sent them pictures of the float, and they see what it's like. They see the major areas that are ripped with the cleats and stuff, and those are our primary parts. And they also went on time and materials for any underneath structural issues. We won't know until we get it out of the water and look at it. And this is something we have to understand, is that that float's been in the water for almost 10 years, and there's going to be some damage to it. I mean, it's just, even on the top, there's damage to it. So this float was kind of thrown to the forefront because of the Catalina Express taking their large boat up north to have it rehab, new engines and stuff on it. So we got to get this back. We're hopefully get this thing completed by President's weekend in February. So I've sent out 3 or 4 scope of work to different boat yards on the mainland and to Caleb here, and got back the bids. And Al Larson, the boat shop, this is what they do. They do, I mean, there's very few boat shops, yards along the coast anymore, and especially in California with all of the EPA issues. But this is what they do. And he's, if this goes through tonight, then we're going to have to move some people out of the way over there to be able to get this in and out of the water and get it back in the water. I set a date of January 25th, and I feel pretty confident we can hit that date. But short of that, he fully is aware of what.
So in the other two quotes from South Coast Shipyard and Catalina Boatyard, did they have any discussion about the steel structures? Because I don't, or the undercarriage of the float?
No, they just, Caleb dove in the water, looked at it, and he made his bid on that.
So his is inclusive of that?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
His is inclusive of the work that needs to be done underneath?
To his knowledge, yeah. That includes it. And the other Larson's shipyard in Newport, I too sent him pictures, and he too understands that there may be some other issues. I don't think so. We won't know until we get into it.
Right.
And when Caleb came out, there was no, oh my God, look at this, So it's a pretty stout float. It just hasn't been maintained in so many years.
I think it was just a little uncomfortable to, read that they have not yet looked at the float. And here we are looking, your recommendation is to award them a bid. So that was my first uncomfortable moment. And second to that, time and materials, which is a significant portion of what I can see as the work needing to be done. And so is that going to be, we're authorizing a bid of what you're asking for is not to exceed $105,000, and then we get another $35,000, $45,000, $60,000 coming in.
Well, before any of that happens, we're going to have a pretty good indication of what it's going to take. He has his personnel over there. They've got to take the deck off. It's unbolts. It's just wood with fiberglass and non-skid on it, and they can get in underneath and look at the cleats and everything else. Now, also, that I told everybody else is we have gussets that are already built to put in there. So we're not having to pay for the gussets, and that was a pretty expensive piece of equipment. And we've got like 6 of them to go to each of the cleats. So we're going to save there. I think we can keep a pretty good eye on it and not try to be frugal about our cash, because we have a lot going on, and I don't want to send this over, get it done, and then 2 years later we're sitting back going, well, we got to send it back over. This is going to be probably a 10-year fix for this float.
I guess if I was South Coast Shipyard, I'd be a little I wouldn't be really happy, because I got a $94,000 bid offer, and you're going to say not to exceed 105.
Well, again, that has to do with time and materials. We don't know what that time and materials are going to be. I'm thinking it's not going to be that expensive, but according to his, am I done?
No, that wasn't me.
According to his quote, his labor is $74 an hour, which is, I believe, when we had our patrol boats done, the labor was $89 an hour. So it's what they do. They know how to get in. They know how to get it done. They're telling me they can get it done in 10 days, and I don't know. I'm just I'm shooting from the hip also, but we have to do something.
No doubt.
Right, but I think the questions still need to be asked,
Well,
that's the reason
totally
you're
get that.
here.
No, I totally get that. I just wish I had definitive answers, but that float hasn't been out of the water, and not only am I fighting getting the float out of the water, I'm fighting getting it back in, because Can-Do is going to end up towing their boat out of the water. Yes, ma'am.
My other question was, does this quote also include towing to and from the mainland?
No, we will tow it, and with our personnel, we had 2 guys just come out of rescue boat handling, and this would be a great training opportunity for them.
Councilman, did you have a comment?
No, as long as you don't need the rescue boat over here.
So, I guess I'm having a hard time adding. So what did you actually add to get to that number? Because one option is a 61 and there's a 30.
The 80,000 is with option number 2.
Includes the 61.
Which made this a little difficult to look at apples and, it's almost apples and oranges, because the other 2 quotes, it's not clear, but I'm assuming that they were not doing the upgraded number of paint applications.
Well, actually, the $30,000, 544 was the exact apples to apples.
Okay.
He looks at the float because of his expertise is saying, how long do you want this float to last? Do you want it to last a year or 2 years? Then option 1 would be fine. I don't want it to last 1 or 2 years or 3 years. I want it to last 10 years. And that's why I chose option 2, which was still below everybody else's cost. So it was apples to apples, but he threw in that. And, and I thank him for that, because in the long run, I think we're going to be better off for that.
I got a question.
Come up to the mic, please, Jamie. Thank you.
My question is the floats possibly going to be replaced with phase 2, the mole renovations?
No, negative. That's not the intent on any of the floats. They're not going to be replaced at all. We have what we have. We're going to rehab the other 2 on phase 2, 1 and 2. They're going to, at some point in time, we're going to have to pull those out and try to find some floats to put in there for Express to use while we're doing this. But no, they're not going to, not to my knowledge, not going to be replaced.
There has been discussion about changing the docking for the express boats so they wouldn't have to stay in gear.
Right. We're working on that. This is kind of a separate issue. We have, when we get this back, I will be coming back to you guys with a request to get some hinges put on float 1 so we can move it into float 2 and hinge them together, and the boats go the same, up and down the same ways. And then in the phase 2 of the project, the mole, put in an anchoring system to where they can put their engines in neutral. And I've talked to Greg about this in depth about how to do this, and we got a pretty good idea of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, but that's not going to be until 2020.
So you're not going to be throwing these away and down the line?
Yeah, it's down the line.
And we have to land boats.
If I could do it now,
we have to land boats in the interim.
Right.
Yeah, the harbor still got to be open, and this phase 2 project is, it's going to be a big project, and we still got to work out the details on where their boats are going to be coming in and how they're going to be coming in. So.
Okay.
JJ, I'm just curious, do we have a sense of how much it would cost to build new floats? I mean, just by way of a comparison?
Well, I think I gave that last time, and I want to say, and we're in the process of, for last time I was here, the RFP for the floats, it's anywhere about a ballpark was 160 to 180. But, I mean, again, these floats are still, they're viable floats. They're good floats. It's just, if we had taken them out and maintained them, we used to take them out at the quarry, floats 4 and 5, but now due to regulations, we can't do that anymore. Because we can't have any non-quarry people on their land.
And then what would be the maintenance schedule going forward?
Going forward, I hope to get this done this year. I'm hoping to get the 2 done in 2020, 2 and 3, and then I think we can pull floats 4 and 5, the upper section out. That's probably going to be 2021. There's a lot of work, and it takes time, and that's what's killing us. Not to mention, we're so busy out there that it's hard to be away with a float.
And what kind of maintenance will be required then once it's rehab?
Actually, once it's done, it's a 10-year float. So, we're not going to be disconnecting it and pulling it out and scraping it. So it's going to be there. And obviously, there's no guarantees, but that's by sandblasting it, by putting 4 coats of paint on it, 2 coats of bottom paint, all new zincs. Maybe yearly we'll replace the zincs to help in any corrosion situations.
Well, so are you saying on things like this, they just do the work and there are no guarantees?
Well, there's never guarantees.
Well, no, if you buy something, you give
if the guy, this is what the guy does for a living. He does government contracts. He got, it's a big boatyard. This is what he does, and I can't imagine him being some fly-by-night. I've known.
I know they're not fly-by-nights, but I mean, there should be something that says. What?
There should be a warranty.
Yeah, there should be some kind of a warranty.
I'll ask him about the warranty, but I mean, quite honestly, when you're dealing with environment and water and swell and everything else,
I get it. I understand that. However, if I don't know, if legal says that's something that should be given in something like this, maybe he only says it's good for 4 years. And that might still be okay with us, but I mean, if all of a sudden if he...
I can get an opinion from him regarding, after taking it all down and getting it painted up, approximate, usage out of it.
Yeah, I guess, because if you're saying 10 years, that'd be nice, but if it turns out 9.5, we don't go after him, but I mean, if it's something happens in 2 years, that's out of our control, not like...
The paint falls off and we go after them.
Exactly. I mean, again, we're only talking...
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
When we put that float in, originally in 2004 or 7, something like that, shortly, 3 years, 4 years later, those cleats started ripping out of the deck. There's no guarantee that, and it just, there's a lot of reasons why, but it could have been that the Express got bigger boats, taller boats, and the forces on the cleats were different. And when you unload 300 people, the boat rises and, it pulls up. So perhaps if we got in there and got it taken care of earlier, we wouldn't be sitting where we're sitting.
No, I understand it. It's not the same as a warranty on a car. I get it.
I just,
Yeah, I'm not giving you a hard time. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Thank you. I live for the moment.
Thank you. Come back in 2 more weeks, we'll give you some more. No, okay. What are we, item number 3?
I'm on staff on item number 3 and just emphasize not to exceed 105,000.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Further comments? Call for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
All ayes.
Item number 6.
Item number 6 is in general business, and I'll have Amanda come up and go over this one. This is the introduction and waiving of all further readings of an ordinance for the accessory dwelling units.
So if you recall, a few months or so ago, we had a joint meeting with the Planning Commission where we talked about 3 different housing statutes that we needed to update. This is the first one that's coming your way. This is our accessory dwelling unit ordinance. The state had passed statutes that required cities to allow an accessory dwelling unit. This is a dwelling unit that can be created inside an existing structure or can be a detached structure on the property. So the Planning Commission reviewed the ordinance. The state kindly allowed the city to make some choices in the ordinance. And so we had discussed most of those choices at our joint meeting. So we took it back to the Planning Commission and they reviewed it, and it's pretty much coming back to you the way it was talked about at our joint meeting. So this is just a first reading. If you have any questions for me or any clarifications you want to make.
I had a few. Did you have some?
I just had a couple of questions. An ADU still needs a water allocation, correct?
I'm not sure. Only because there's language in the statute that says you can't impose additional, you can't say that it requires additional assessments or...
Yeah, but we're not saying that. Edison allocates the water.
Right.
But if I build a unit on top of my garage, that's essentially new development.
Yes, if it's an additional dwelling unit, then I'm pretty sure Edison would say it requires a fresh water allocation. If you're taking an existing bedroom inside your house and carving it out into a separate rental unit, then it wouldn't.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, and then it wasn't totally clear, the parking and requiring off-street parking was clear, but I may have missed it.
No,
They're unable to get a vehicle for an ADU.
It says, I know, no ADU parking.
No ADU parking, and parking was all good, but...
And then no additional off-street parking space is required to serve an accessory, but, so that means they can have one to park on the street?
There is no language in this ordinance that says an additional accessory dwelling unit does not qualify for a vehicle.
But I think we discussed at the joint meeting that we wanted to amend the vehicle code provision to make it clear that an ADU did not qualify for.
You were going to look at it through a different
Right.
mechanism, not through this.
Oh, not through, okay, that's where my confusion is, because I didn't see that in here. And I knew we had that conversation to say that we did not want to allow
back and looked.
additional vehicles. Okay, and then just my last point to just clarify for me, were we allowing people to be able to convert their garage, which is considered an off-street parking, that
believe
they
so.
may have been required to have that as off-street
I
parking?
believe the language is that if they have a garage that currently is providing parking, they would have to recreate that parking somewhere else in order to convert the garage to a dwelling unit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's in section 4B of the ordinance.
So if I had a garage that I was required to have,
right,
and I wanted to build that garage into an ADU, I would have to provide another space on my property for the off-street parking that I was already required to have. Okay, that's, okay, clarified, thank you.
For low and moderate income housing, are ADUs low and moderate income housing?
No.
So what is that then? I don't understand. For LM, low and moderate income housing.
That's our zone. There's a zone that we have that's called...
Right, there's a reference to the low density and low intensity, low moderate income housing zone. That's just saying that zone allows and accommodates accessory dwelling units.
So those different sections are just identifying based on what our zoning code currently calls our different options.
Oh, it has nothing to do.
But I did have a question about those, in terms of drafting, why it's necessary to actually repeat all of the height provisions for each of the zones. Because then if we at some point change those in the zoning planning, then we'd have to go back and change all of this. I'm wondering if it might just be easier to reference whatever's in the zoning and planning code would apply to the accessory unit. So that it's for height.
It sounds like that would be similar to what we're proposing
Right,
eventually in the
and
density
setbacks,
bonus unit.
this is exactly what's in the planning code.
So perhaps, Elizabeth, we could, to the extent that we are imposing the same development standards, perhaps we can just reference the development standards. I believe there is one section where we're allowing
Lot
deviation
coverage
from
was-
the
right.
Florida lot, but other than that, I don't know if it'd make it
to the extent we don't
less
do anything
wordy, just
different.
to-
Yeah,
We
and
have
it seemed to me that
cross-reference.
it was exactly the same, that we could just shorten it up and not end up
perhaps
with
in those
potential
sections, we just
conflicts.
reference the code
We can
section.
cross-reference the code section instead of restating it.
There was a lot in there, wasn't it?
Attorneys get paid by
Now,
the
can
word.
we make that change, Elizabeth, and just bring that back to the second reading? It wouldn't have to go back to the planning.
Yes.
commission.
Yeah, it's not changing the substance.
It's not changing the substance, it's just a
Changing the
scrivener's
reference,
change.
how we reference it. Okay.
I was going to request or make a recommendation that we do a substantive change, because I think that, I agree that we don't have architectural design standards, but I think it would be appropriate, and in fact, BB&K and your Azusa ordinance has language that's, I think, really applicable, and it says, architectural design for the accessory dwelling unit shall relate to the design of the primary residence by use of similar exterior wall materials, window types, door and window trims, roofing materials, and roofing pitch, or roof pitch, which I think, if you're going to stick another unit on top of a unit, that we want them to be consistent. And I think that's a way of ensuring that it is.
Well, I think after our conversation, I went and pulled back one of the early versions of the ordinance, And I believe to the extent that if you have an architectural review, that indicates that there's a subjective review of the architectural style, and the ADU doesn't allow us to, it has to be almost like a ministerial approval. It can't be discretionary. But it sounds like that if you just say it has to match the existing, then you're not saying, oh, you're not telling it what kind of style it has to be. You're just saying that it has to match what's already there. So that may be why that code has that in there. But maybe it's how it's worded.
I think it is specific. I mean, you're not using discretion.
Right. I think
You're just
that was-
saying the windows are a certain kind of window, and that's what you're going to put into the accessory.
Right. And I think when we, in the comments where we took that language out, it was a concern that if we
That it was
weren't careful
subjective.
how we worded it, it would look like an architectural review board, and that would not be a ministerial review. That would be a
We can't do that, but we
discretionary.
can put in criteria. And if you're comfortable with the criteria that we put in
I thought this was
good. We can revise this to put that in.
You can't bill us for that, though.
I already wrote it.
That's why I say you can't bill us for it.
I already wrote it the first time.
Okay, on no short-term rentals,
I think the position was we didn't want, let me back up, because the state is imposing this statute in order to provide housing.
Right.
Not necessarily, well, it is kind of as a way to provide affordable housing, because you're anticipating that these little smaller units will not be expensive housing. It also is a way for people who perhaps are trying to pay their mortgage can get some income to help do
Right.
that. But I think the idea was that if we're going to facilitate and make this possible, we don't want them used for vacation rentals.
and that's why I'm not comfortable with even fewer than 30 days. I mean, that number, 30, so I rent it for 31 days. You know,
All
or
units in Avalon that
32
way.
days. Huh?
But I think
So,
that's our current
I'm sorry?
code is.
Wait, what are you saying?
Any unit in Avalon can be rented for 30 or more days.
I know, but if we're giving them all this ministerial leeway and being really nice to them.
Giving it to them. The state gave it to them.
The state gave it to us.
Okay, but we're having to do it. I think 30 days, people get around that all the time. I mean, they have to get a business license, right? Because do they have to have a business license?
Sure.
Okay.
You're renting.
But I don't know. If it's supposed to be for year-round housing, I don't think, I'd like to see something more than 30 days in that thing, if we could do that.
Well, I believe that is referencing currently our transient definition is 30 days.
Right.
That's how we define transient housing.
That is how Avalon defines a short-term rental, is 30 days. And so that's the language that we used, is because the direction was not to we didn't want it to be available for short-term rental.
I think that's fine, but there's 31 days in a month. Okay, so I wish we could put something that's a little longer, or that, there's a year lease on the place, or something like that, so we know that they're not doing that, and people aren't then being evicted and we don't know about it. It's just my opinion, folks.
I'm just pondering, because the state is kind of got us in a box, and Elizabeth knows better than I how we can restrict it so that it's not transient rentals, but I don't know. I don't want us to wander off into water where it's a discretionary approval and it's not. I don't know.
I personally am not comfortable with that section that says that, but.
So
if you're saying it's impossible to put that in there, but if there's something we could do to make it look.
So how about this? I think what I'm hearing from Councilmember Albers is that she wants to make a change, so we're going to go, if that's the will of the council, we'll go back and make that change and bring it back for a first reading. And while we're out, we can take a look and see if we're comfortable adding a longer period of time, again, if that's the will of the council. And we'll bring it back to you in 2 weeks.
I'm okay with that.
That it's non-transient.
Do they have suggestions?
I don't know if, because our code currently says transient use requires a conditional use permit. The state has said you can't require a conditional use permit for accessory dwelling units. So we already kind of have an overlap to where we're saying if you want to do less than 30 days, you have to have a conditional use permit, and we're saying you can't use accessory dwelling units for that. So
And only in that one little line is that,
But I think what we're talking about is imposing an additional requirement, simply that it must be made available for year-round rental. So if somebody came to them and said, I want to rent for a year.
You did discuss that during the workshop, and you guys weren't comfortable with saying a year-round, because what if somebody wants a 6-month lease?
Right.
You know, that's still not temporary housing, it's real housing. So you weren't really comfortable with the 1 year, was the conversation that we had previously. So if you want more than 30 days, what is it that you're thinking? And then Amanda's been working directly on this particular part of the ordinance with Todd Leishman from our office, who is a national expert on short-term rentals. So we'll go back and talk to him some more. He just testified at Congress last month on short-term rental issues. So he knows all there is to know. And we can talk to him about if there's a way to do it. But I would need some direction from the council on what you would be comfortable with.
6 months.
6 months?
6 months.
6 months? 90 days?
Okay with that? So not less than a 6-month rental term?
Then, another one. Number of stories permitted and limitations. This is just because I don't understand planning talk. Second and third story, if permitted by variance. Well, isn't our goal to not do variances?
I'm trying to find where you are in.
I know, it's under, I don't know, because there's no page numbers, but 1, 2...
What section are you in?
3, 4, 5, DD for MD multiple residential. Shit.
That is out of the zoning code, and we're going to just refer to the zoning code, and so
I just know we keep saying we don't want to try to do variances, but this opens the door for variances, right? If permitted by variance, so people could come with a variance.
Number of stories per minimum, second
Right.
and third stories.
I'm thinking we're referring to the zoning code. We've said that the development standards for each zone applies, and that is the language that is in the high-density residential zone. So the question is, an ADU wouldn't be able to apply for a variance because then it's into a discretionary approval. So I'm just...
You understand this a lot better than I do, so I just wondered why, if permitted by variance, why would it even be in there? Why a variance would even be in there? That's all. And
maybe that's a good question for Todd. Only because if the ADU, the bottom line is the ADU has to be ministerial. So that means no conditional use permit.
Right.
You would think that that also means no variances.
Right.
Right, it
So-
can't be a discretionary approval.
Right.
So I think we'll...
So maybe I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So maybe when we reference the development standards in the code, we can add a phrase, something along the lines, to the extent that the property meets the development standards and doesn't require
a variance.
A variance from those development standards.
Okay, that's all I had.
That's good.
Council, then what is your pleasure?
It's coming back in 2 weeks.
Okay, we're changing. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So we'll need a motion to continue for 2 weeks, and I just want to make sure that we're clear. So we want a 6-month minimum. We're going to look at the Azusa language on design and incorporate that in here, and then we're also going to look at that one reference to the variance.
Perfect, that's great.
Second to continue.
That was my motion.
Nice motion.
Second is by, call by the vote. Oh, you already voted.
Who was the second?
All ayes.
I was
Cindy. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Jim. Back out that vote, because he may change our minds.
I'm not sure that I will, but just as an observation, I would hope that part of the benefit of having such a unit built in some locations in the city might address peak demand for employment. So a seasonal employee who's maybe here 3 to 4 months. So if you go 6 months, you might be inadvertently writing someone out of that opportunity. I understand wanting it more than 30. I understand wanting to reinforce that it's not a short-term rental, but maybe there's some in between 30 to 90 days or something like that. I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that out because that is part of the demand we have for employee housing here.
And the problem the problem I have with that is they're going to demand more rent out of those folks, I think. If there comes a person for 3 or 4 months, or they're going to want to put a whole lot of people in it for employee housing. I mean, and I think we're trying to deal with the year-round housing as much as possible first, at least I am. But I mean, it's good comment, and you all may agree with what Jim says.
It's just for your consideration.
No, I know.
You guys have spent a lot more time with it than I have.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think any ordinance we have can be amended sometime down the road if the needs change.
He always is so good with those kind of things.
Well, I mean, if in fact the housing that's on the books gets built, the problem we have today is not going to be here.
Right,
And so, the flexibility there.
Yeah. How many applications do you have for ADUs on right now, Amanda? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Thank
So
you, State
just
of
wishful
California.
thinking. Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 7.
Good evening again, Bob Greenlaw, Director of Public Works. This item again continues our discussion on the residential parking because of the new Vaughn store and in the vicinity of Sumner, Beacon, and Catalina. And of course, we have a lot to do further on out from here, but if we can get our discussion where we're limiting it to those streets, and then I think that maybe we can get some successful direction tonight. So for the people at home, and just to give some background so that where we were in the last meeting. So this item was initially presented during the October 16, 2018 meeting of City Council. It's a follow-up discussion to discuss refinements to the previous alternatives and receive public input and further direction from City Council. So all modifications are proposed to be implemented for a 60-day trial period to gather data and seek public input on the effectiveness of the implemented measures that you would give us direction to implement. At the end of the trial period, staff will present a report of the findings and make further recommendations for keeping or modifying the measures. And we can do that any number of times till we basically establish perfection of these measures. So at the October meeting, what we heard was that we were going to further refine the Beacon Street and Sumner Avenue interim improvement concepts, including a temporary medium. And I want to do a little more engineering on that intersection and bring that back at the next meeting. So, you know, the main thing we want to focus on tonight at that intersection is looking at where the red curb is, because that's going to limit some of the parking just by those intersection improvements. Okay, and then that would also include painting temporary pedestrian crosswalks, which we'll discuss at the next meeting. And then number 2 was to refine an alternative where Lower Catalina Avenue and Lower Sumner Avenue would have resident preferred parking on one side. So that was one of the alternatives that we discussed. And the curbs on the other side would be painted green for 1 hour or possibly 2 hour. We had mentioned both of those. And then we said there could be a second alternative where those same segments would just provide the area with aforementioned green curb on both sides of the road and provide the immediate residents with permits. And included tonight, I have a sample permit that would be used even before we had stickers that would affix on there that we could use for those 60 days. And I'll have those up in just a minute here. And then number 3 was to refine an alternative where the curbs on the upper Beacon Street between Sumner Avenue and Metropole would be painted green for possibly 1 hour or 2 hour. And again, provide the residents in that area with permits that exempt their vehicles from those restrictions. And it's important to note, because some people, like the lodge there has a frontage on both, so they possibly could get a permit for either or street. So that should be considered too, because that request did come from that parcel owner there that could have either one. Number 4, do not include the proposal for painting the curbs on the lower 300 block of Catalina. That's what I heard at the last meeting, that we had that. And you'll see this is the same exhibit that we used this last meeting, so I haven't changed that exhibit. Right. Okay. And then number 5 was refine the alternative with the curbs on both sides of the lower 300 block of Sumner, and that was in 75 foot of length. In that exhibit, we showed 150. So we can decide, hopefully that tonight, you know, what we want to get a trial on Sumner as we go up that 300 block just immediately by the store there. And then, of course, the residents, again, will be provided permits to exempt their vehicles. And then the last one was refine the alternative where the existing green curb on the westerly side of Metropole from Beacon to the Island Company's driveway entrance would be converted from 1 hour to long-term diagonal parking. So right now, there are some segments there that are green 1 hour parking, and that could be converted for that longer-term parking. So that's an alternative that's on the table. Maybe too much tonight to decide, but, you know, it's out there for us. So really what I want to do is go to that intersection exhibit. Okay, here's that same intersection exhibit from the last meeting. And what I want to point out, more so than look at the total intersection, is just look at the red curb. And what we said before, we don't want any other conflicts in this intersection. It's busy enough, we don't need any parking here. But there's parking, especially on that westerly side there, that we're going to be removing. The parking in front of Vaughn's already is removed. And so that's an impact. That's an additional impact. But that is a safety feature so that when peds, bikes, vehicles are in that intersection, there's no other conflicts. Okay? So that's the reason. That's for safety. Okay? And then let's go to the parking exhibit. Maybe I went. Okay. And for the public here, there is hard copies over here right on the table. Dan, could you hand those? Help hand those out. Because I realize this exhibit, once it gets up to the screen, is very difficult. So if you want to follow along, it's in that packet there. And that's why I provided this to you, Council, so that it's the same exhibit as last time. Ignore the dimensions as we look at on Sumner and Catalina, where we have 150 and 100 feet. That was what we said last time. And then at first you said, one of the directions you gave us is ignore, don't consider the 300 block where it says 100 feet there on Catalina. So that was the direction last time. So there is an existing red curb if we're on Catalina, and it's noted there with a note, existing red sight distance fire hydrant. That's already there, that exists there. The curb across the street from that, and realize when I talk north, north is up here on this diagram. So north is up. That westerly side of Catalina, right below where it says 100 feet, do you see where I'm saying that?
Yes.
That was potentially where we would have the truck maybe pull up and then back straight in, because what we're hearing from Avalon Freight Service versus what was initially designed in the project was this would be the quicker route to move the truck to back right into where the loading zone is. Considering that you may have 8 to 12, trips a week, times 30 years. Yeah, this is a movement that we want to get right. And I can bring further analysis on that when I do this other intersection next week, because I did provide some of that, but I could show you the truck turning movements, and then I could get also testimony from Avalon Freight Service saying, hey, we've tried this is a better route for us. It would probably maybe quicken up being out there in the middle of the intersection, okay? So that's why that red curb there. The red curb, of course, on Beacon in the stretch between Catalina and Sumner, of course, we know why that's there, a very narrow roadway. And we know why the frontage and in the intersection there are the Vaughns, and then also at the Catalina Lodge there where, right at the sight distance of the corner. So those are givens.
Right.
Okay? And then the red for the sheriff, that's a given.
Why is that a given?
That's where, unless we want to, talk to the captain and say that's not needed parking, that's where they park the sheriff's vehicles. That's where they stage them.
They have a driveway, right?
They have a driveway with 4 spots.
Parking spots right up front.
Yeah.
3 spots in front. And I'll let...
I really never see them parked there on the street. Hardly ever. But anyway, you can deal with him on that. There's the hydrant there?
Yeah.
There's a hydrant there.
So they park by the fire hydrant?
the hydrant right across there from the Westford.
Yeah, we usually park one or two of our sheriff vehicles on the street there, and the fire department also uses that for, not the fire trucks, but their SUVs when they come down and go into this, down to Front Street.
Oh, so if, in case there's an emergency, they can hop in quick.
And one other thing just to point out right there is working with the library as they redo it, they're talking about taking those 3 spots that are up off the street and using them for ADA parking for the library there. So we're debating that with them right now, but that's unrelated to this.
Past, close to your drive, taking where your driveway is and you park, they're taking,
Yes, where our driveway is, there's 3 or 4
yeah.
spots right to the right of it. Those are the ones they're talking about taking out for ADA parking.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, we can focus on that, I think, as a later piece of this, but
Okay.
between their driveway and the red there, we could probably make something ADA and take care of that. So, and then right at by the Atwater, that little piece of red, it says red sight distances. I'm down there by the waterfront. And then the other, when I go over to Catalina, it says a little arrow, it says red sight distance. That's where I'm talking about shortening up that big red curb, piece of red curb, and so we can get some extra green there, okay?
Okay.
Are they still using that for the?
From my understanding, that they don't need, and that would be one of the things you can direct me to do, make sure that I get that dimension right so it doesn't hamper the vehicles, but, and all of these direct me, you know, go look at the sight distance and don't shorten anything up that is needed for safety. And then everything else, you could say, go free will at trying to put it green at the first 60 days, you know.
The spirit of that was for the big trucks.
Absolutely, and that's,
The
yeah.
big buses to go in there.
Yes. So I would check into that and make sure that worked. And like I said, this is green paint, and I can change it to red paint the next day once it dries. So if it's not working.
Watercolors.
Watercolor, that's correct.
Chalk.
If we ever get rain, I don't know. So I guess it's down to the alternatives now, whether we want to have permit parking on one side. We got to understand how our street sweeping works too. So does that cause a little bit of a conflict? You know, if you have one side that is always resident parking versus it's just all open for resident parking with and I do have that permit here. This is the permits. Okay, so Dudley came up with these, and so you can see this is what we would use as an interim, and then we could make something that would be, you know, could be affixed to those resident vehicles. So the intent of this would only be for the vehicles that are assigned, you know, that are allocated to those houses on those permits, and they're not transferable, and they're only for those areas in that block. So if you live in the 200 block of Catalina, you would have the ability to be exempt. You wouldn't have the ability to be exempt on Sumner. So at least that's, I keep it the simplest part, you know, so that you wouldn't have parking on either street. Would only be the intent in the area of your residence. So I'm just trying to start with the simplest approach first.
Right.
And then we can say, okay, and talk to all the residents, is this working for you? It's green, is it 1 hour, 2 hour? Because you were suggesting also 2 hours, is that really long enough? The 1 hour, is that really long enough for what they're doing to park once and then do all their business and then come back? So really I'm looking for that time period, and I guess, do we want to try what I've got denoted in green to start here? And then, so on Catalina, go all the way up on that easterly side of Catalina in the 200 block, go all the way up on that westerly side of Catalina until we get to the taxi stand in the transit, then go over on Sumner and do the same thing. And then on Sumner in the 300 block, 75 feet on each side, going up away from the store on the western and eastern side, and nothing on Catalina in the 300 block. And then, you know, is it the first stab at this on Metropole, on Beacon from Metropole to Sumner, all green? and then make all the long-term over on Metropole, like we suggest?
Okay, you're talking about the diagonal or the?
I'm talking on Beacon.
On
make that
Metropole, on Metropole.
On Metropole, the diagonal from.
Basically already are all day.
All the way down to the Island Company's ingress driveway, and make all those long-term parking.
Even though they're marked 1 hour, they're never marked. I mean, the tires are never marked.
Yeah. But so the intent would be that could be where you could park if you worked by the waterfront, or you had something longer to do down there, versus, down by where, you're impacting the residents at the store, so.
I like that.
So we can take a piece at a time. How do we feel about Catalina, 200 block?
Fine.
Fine.
Good.
Okay. And that would be the first 60 days it would just be wherever, then there would not be one side or the other.
Right.
Right. And we can change that later.
But there is no street sweeping on Catalina, is there?
Roberta says no.
Is there a street sweeping anywhere?
Not in
There's street sweeping on Beacon. There's also street sweeping. There's parking restrictions for that, but.
Right.
No, there's street sweeping on Catalina.
Yeah, it's when you get
they
to
have
100
another
block of
side.
the streets that that it gets real limited street sweeping because,
Just all those eucalyptus things that make the street look terrible all the time.
I'm going to advocate again that somebody who lives on Catalina, or for the residential people on Sumner, if you get home from work after 4:30, because that's the rush to Vons, you are not going to find a place to park, and I feel that that's unfair. So I'm in favor of some kind of preferential parking that says after 4:30, you can only park there if you have a preferential permit.
And that would mainly be on Catalina, because I think on Sumner, when, Roberta was here at the last meeting, and
Right.
she was saying it's only like 2 or 3 spots that's needed.
And
even if we had to change that on
I guess I'm arguing for consistency,
Yeah, yeah,
because you've got the
really.
Westbrook, there are some people that have vehicles who live at the Westbrook. No? What,
Yeah, he
the
does, 'cause I
two
thought he
little
charged
houses,
25 bucks
and
a month to
then
have one.
She
the
said there was
Whale's
like 2
Tail
or on
building, or their
Sumner.
residential,
She said there was
Susie?
And there's
She
somebody.
has the parking in the back.
Oh, she has parking, okay.
I think I'd rather go the simpler way first, and if we need to change it, after 60 days, see what happens.
And we'll be actively pursuing input from the public. We'll be.
Oh, you'll get it.
Yeah.
So you're talking 60
I wanna
days
hear it.
after the store opens?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Until mid-February, or mid-March.
Okay. So what we see there at Sumner, you'd be in agreement with that? As far as the 200 block?
Have nothing in the 300 block.
Nothing, you don't want nothing in the 300 block?
I thought that's what we we agreed, both on Catalina and Sumner, that.
I think that there was, because of the
Canyon.
front entrance there was the potential, that's what I think I was hearing, there was the potential, and we were shortening the distance, that, you could walk into the front of the store, so you'd pull down the block, you wouldn't see any parking, and you go, okay, and so then that would impact the residents in that first 75 feet.
Right. But once again, you're disrupting established parking patterns that people have, and that is the surefire way in this town to get tarred and feathered.
Yeah.
I mean, people are, understand that that's where my vehicle is going to be parked. And so for those people who are on the up Canyon side of the Vons, I think it's going to be an impact.
Well, what's really unfortunate is that how many hours have we spent discussing how we're going to make parking happening when it should have been the Vons store that determined how parking was going to happen. So I'm advocating for the 300 block of Sumner. I will advocate more for them. They will be impacted more than Catalina will.
There's a lot of people that live on
And there are a
Sumner.
lot of people that live on Sumner. I believe that there should be no store parking at all on the 300 block of Sumner, but I don't know how you could actually regulate that. So whatever we need to do, I do not want to forget people who live on Sumner and making sure that we are not disrupting their current parking patterns.
So they would get a permit.
They would get a permit,
Okay.
but I mean, Sumner, both sides of Sumner on a daily basis it's full, and those are folks that actually do live there, so how are we?
And I think
how are we thinking we're going to add a whole bunch of Vaughn's parking availability?
I think, go ahead.
I just don't understand why we're making concessions for them now. I mean, somebody else has a business, we're not making concessions for them. Vaughn's comes in and we're making concessions for them, and it should have been taken care of a long time ago. It just doesn't make sense to me.
We're solving their problem.
We're solving their problem, and they're the ones that did this, so.
No.
And again, like she says, parking on Catalina or Sumner is tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
And it's just, why are we, I mean, it's on us, and it's just ridiculous.
No, you're right. Upper Catalina, and Upper Catalina
Put it on us.
doesn't have that many
Baloney.
full-time residents, but Sumner really is, and there's multi-units on that street. So I would say,
So how do you do that, though? Do you make, because right now we're looking at 150 feet on Sumner, making it 1 hour parking unless you have a permit, correct?
So I think what we heard is 75, we were going to reduce it to 75 feet to start last time. And we, whatever you desire.
No,
but I can change it. Hopefully we hold it for 60 days, but we can try something. And I think if we try something, you know, if we feel like it's really going to be an impact, we can always change it back and get the input. And if we don't try something, maybe we won't get the input. We'll just get the complaints. So at least we're trying to be proactive. We're not trying to be flat-footed here. We're trying to get out and say, do you like it or not? You know, and did it work for you?
well, we've discussed this twice, and who from the community is here to talk about parking? You know, maybe it's because half the town can't get to see our council meetings right now, but this is pretty important.
That's why I keep on bringing it back every meeting. I'm trying to bring little pieces so that everybody can stay engaged and we're not taking too big a piece at a time, you know.
So I guess, for the sake of moving on, I'm fine if we try that 75-foot, but parking permits for both sides of the street for residents is what we're agreeing to? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the same thing for that upper part of Upper Beacon? Is that where you were going to go next?
That was where I was going to go next, because right now, the anecdotal information is that's being used for long-term parking. And so that would provide relief even for Sumner residents, you know, because you could, again, maybe give, if that's the issue, if you're at the Sumner right at that corner and we're taking parking away out of the intersection, maybe we give you a permit for up Beacon, you know, a couple spots up too. So it's just trying to move them around a little bit to give them some leeway. Because then you put that long-term parking on Metropole is what we're suggesting.
I'm not a big proponent of long-term parking at all, but we can discuss that. I really want to advocate for 2 hours, because when you go to church on Sunday, and you go to church for an hour and then you go to breakfast there, or instead of people having to park and then move again, so if you're parked down on Sumner, you can go to Vaughn's, you can then still go pick up your mail. I was talking to Code today, and because the other thing is, if they mark your tire for an hour, people are going to say, oh, look, they're not doing their job because they're going to get away with it, because there's no way they can circulate this town quick enough to bust everybody in an hour. So I really advocate for 2 hours.
2 hours, fine.
It's a trial.
Yeah.
See how it works.
2 hours?
Okay, so let me repeat what
I think she's saying on Sumner Beacon.
I get it.
Yeah.
Just 2 hours is a long time.
Wherever we do it, it's 2
2
hours.
hours is a long time.
No, it's not.
I feel, that's just my opinion.
So the 2 hours is just
If I go to
changing.
Vaughn's and we get stopped in the arcade, and then we go to Chet's, and then I got to go get a prescription drug thing, and look how long it takes us to talk in Vaughn's.
That's what we signed up for.
Stop off for martini.
So anyway, okay, I would like
question whether people are going to go into Vaughn's and shop and then walk down to the arcade. That's not happening.
I thought our goal was to get people to walk.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, no, that's.
They're going to be driving down there and can't find a place to park.
I think we're already working with an hour. I'd rather leave it at an hour and move people through.
I think we ought to talk to Code. They're the ones that are going to have to enforce this. And if they can't get around town quick enough, again, people are going to go, look,
But they're
Code's not
already doing
their
it.
job.
It's not changing, Annie. They're moving from 1 hour parking at Metropole to 1 hour parking on Sumner, which is already 1 hour parking.
There's a whole bunch of more street.
And already they can't get to them all.
Look at all the green, that's new.
Oh, I guess Catalina is
They're
new.
not doing that now.
Okay, so I guess am I hearing 1 hour to start?
No.
I think
an hour.
I believe in an hour.
You
I like
what?
2.
I think an hour.
I think an hour.
I think we're being mean to code,
Okay.
and people are going to say they're not
How
doing
about
it.
90 minutes?
Anybody, come on, people. Carl, you're here. Kathy, you're here. Rocio, you live here. Talk to us about an hour or two if you go downtown and blah, blah.
I walk everywhere.
How do you get your groceries?
My husband works at Vons.
Okay, never mind. Anybody in that back room out there, anybody have a comment besides, come on, Alex. JJ?
No, Alex is working.
No, he can come and make a comment if he wants.
You're not covered by this, JJ.
Well, he's going to get a permit. He lives on.
I'm on Upper Sumner. And when we used to be able to park on either side of the streets, no problem. That law was changed. So certain days you're on the left, certain days you're on the right. That created was everybody that's on Lower Tremont parks on Sumner. So it's just a trickle-down effect of blocks. But I believe from what I'm hearing, I'm far enough up the hill that Vons is not going to affect us maybe.
That's
Correct?
what.
Yeah. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what
I would think
the
so. If they want to
assumption
come
is.
park in front of my house to go to Vons, then boy, God.
Annie, I think we should stick with a trial period. I mean, that's what we were talking about all along, so let's try it for the 1 hour parking.
Okay, but bring code into this, please, because they do have
Talking to
opinions,
code.
and they are the ones that are checking us out.
And just to double...
Kathy, come up to the mic. Come on.
No, I just wondered if you...
Come up to-
Come parking at
Yes.
Yes, there's bike racks.
Yes.
There's a bike rack, yeah.
1 hour bike rack.
2 hours. I'm sorry, Mayor, but I think the point that code already enforces the 1 hour parking all over town, they'll still be able to enforce the 1 hour parking. And I think the 1 hour works. People go to the grocery store, they go to the post office, they go to the drugstore, they do most of their errands now in an hour, or else you have to run out there and try to
Or get a
cart.
ticket.
But I think too, we're talking about a test period.
Right.
So everyone who has been accustomed to parking here all day, but parking over there when they go to the post office, there's going to be some shifts around, and there'll be a learning curve and some adjustments, and Bob will be back up here trying not to pull his hair out, but we'll be able to figure it out
Right.
once it's actually working and in place, and then we can come back and tweak it so that it works for everybody.
Okay. I just.
You lost.
Well, and that's okay. It'll come back.
1 hour?
Yeah.
1 hour. Okay, moving on.
Okay, not by consensus, but not by a majority, but yes, by a majority, but not by.
Okay, and so on Catalina, on both the western and the easterly side, all green?
Yes.
On the 200 block? On Sumner, the easterly side, up against the plaza there, that's all green? And then where we have it denoted approximately all green there on the westerly side of Sumner, right? And then 75 feet up Sumner on the 300 block?
Yeah.
And then all the way up Beacon to Metropole. Is there any discussion we want to have on the diagonal parking on Metropole? Or is that a later date?
I hear complaints that there's still not enough parking for large vehicles. Because they're way on Metropole, yeah, and because they're even up quite a ways up. So I would like to see some additional large parking down below, but with a time limit, of course, so they couldn't be parked there all day, because I don't believe people need to park there all day.
I think that maybe once we see Vons move on, yeah, we can see how that'll balance out before we may, this is a quick, just painting the curb.
I know, yeah.
And then we can see how we want to balance that next that iteration.
Okay, but could we maybe have, I don't know.
Can we have a discussion later on it? Because I agree, when Vons moves, the issue of having full-size vehicle spots that issue is going to change. That issue is now going to become, Vons doesn't have enough full-size parking spots in there, and then there's not going to be enough along the streets. So we are going to end up hearing about parking with Vons for a very long time.
That's why we're working on it now.
No, I know what you're saying, but full-size vehicles, there's just not enough parking in town for them anywhere.
So that,
Where there's too many full-size.
The other,
I like the people that come to
the other comment that I would want to make is whether or not there would be a provision for somebody, let's say somebody's coming in from the interior that's obviously driving a full-size vehicle that works in one of these areas. Would we allow for a provision for them to apply for a parking permit? Ollie's shaking his head no.
I wonder who and who that is. I mean, I can't think of.
Two Harbors has parking spaces people come into.
And everybody else works at the quarry. I mean, I don't know that there's, and then the Conservancy has plenty of spots.
And the floating, they have that floating sticker.
Yeah, so I think that might not be an issue. But if you can come up with names, I mean, that'd be interesting.
I don't think it's appropriate to call people out in the middle of a council meeting, but I would like the option for them, one or two persons that I know of, to be able to come to the city and.
So they should just call into me.
I think,
and
okay,
just tell
that's
me
what I'm
what that
asking.
data point is, and then I can report that back to you, that we have a problem.
Yeah.
And then we can modify it, so that, just keep it simple. If we keep it simple to start, and we'll hear it. And then I can report it to you, and then we can modify, okay?
I mean, I don't think I need to on lower, one side of town ask for a parking permit for the other side of town just because, I work in the arcade. So I get that, but somebody who's legitimately driving in from somewhere in the interior.
Right. And so right now, from the Island, on Metropole, the Island Company driveway on up, that's all-day parking, right?
No. The ingress driveway is green up the hill to, on some of the storefronts.
Well,
there. That's,
okay, up until about
green for another 10 or 12 spots, I think, is additional.
The Tech Shack or so.
And then it kind of spots, and there's another spot,
Yeah. And then we can look at other stuff like, okay, there's lots. Okay, anyway, good.
Okay. So you want to give that a trial?
Okay.
Okay, and then we also said that we were going to move the crosswalk that's on Sumner near Beacon, the up Canyon side, that we were going to make it even with the.
Yeah, he just didn't know.
Okay.
Next meeting, I'm going to bring some engineering in, and then we can get detailed on that, because otherwise it'd be too long a discussion tonight.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, item number 8.
Number 8 is some slight changes to our solid waste ordinance, and it's highlighted for you in red. The main thing is when we changed the ordinance, some things were eliminated, particularly the grease that's placed out by our commercial restaurants. Somehow putting in a sealed tight container with a label on it was omitted. We've added a definition for compostable food waste to describe what it is, and also the garbage and recyclable and food waste receptacles. It's just to clean up the language.
Councilman, you had a comment I think you wanted to make.
One of my concerns in looking at this is the fine, $100. I kind of think that's kind of ridiculous. I think when you get to this point like that, and we've had people get fined, have we had people get fined?
Definitely.
I personally think there needs to be a little teeth to something like that, if you're gonna do it. Then people, not all people, but most of the businesses like that are making pretty good money, in my opinion. That doesn't really mean nothing, but $100 is nothing to some of them. I think there needs to be a little teeth involved in it, $500 to $1,000. The word of mouth gets out quick, you won't see it happen again. This $100 and $150 of the relate, is there a way we could change that?
Absolutely.
Got a pen.
I would love to see that changed. I don't know what my colleagues think.
Do you think, how many different businesses have gotten violations?
I have a whole file of them, Annie. I don't want to say which restaurants
No,
they
I
are,
know,
but
I'm not
yes.
asking
They
that.
still, and it's over a 12-month period, so every year you restart the clock, which...
Or you start the clock over. Oh, maybe that shouldn't happen.
So they still get like a warning, then the next time is the first violation, then the second day.
Maybe that should change, so that they're just cumulative.
Well, because it starts with a warning. You don't even get started on the first violation.
And so every year you get a warning, and then every year then you pay $100, but by now they'd be up to $150 or close to $2,500 if they're repeat offenders.
And it's been around long enough, everybody's familiar with it now, right?
Oh, yes.
Everybody's familiar with this. I think the warning thing is probably a good thing. Not to eliminate the warning, everybody's had their chance over the years.
Well, keep the warning because anybody that maybe has been good. I'm sure there's some that have been good. Not everybody's been
I agree not allowing it to start over every year, that it should be per business and just should carry forward, especially if you're keeping files on these. But I would be all in favor of increasing the second violation to $500, then $1,000 for a third violation, something like that, but, and then not resetting the clock.
Right.
But I think it's fair to have a first violation that now you've established a written warning, you've corrected the behavior, and then that keeps the city safe. Yeah.
I can live with that.
Can we, I have a question for the attorney.
Yes.
Oh, it's not paying, she's talking to Denise.
What's that?
Can we do that?
Do whatever you'd like.
Okay, so we go.
You can certainly increase the fines.
Okay.
You're making some substantive changes, so you may want to continue it and let us change
Yes.
that language. That way we're giving people who may have concerns some notice. And we can put it back on in 2 weeks for first reading at that point. Just in case somebody wants to come in and speak to it, because they thought we were only making some non-substantive cleanup changes, and these might be perceived as fairly substantive.
Okay, in that case, I'll move to continue. The second fine is $500. The third fine is
$1,000.
$1,000.
And then up to that 2,500?
Yeah.
And just keep going?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and just one other question. So, even if things are put in all of these watertight containers and all of this, why do we still have such a nasty alley?
Well,
I mean, because we
because they're
don't,
still putting it out with plastic over it, they're putting it out before the deadline of, because they're only supposed to put it out like the night before, so many hours before the pickup. And we have had a lot of conversations with the restaurants, we're trying to get, and that's when we noticed, oh, wait a minute, that was eliminated from our code. So this is to give us the power to do that. And
Hopefully we'll have a nice, clean smelling alley.
It's actually getting a little bit better.
well, because our boys are out there, right?
Yeah, that's actually in our rotation of pressure washing, and we have been working, we have quarterly management meetings with the Island Company, so that's one of, the safe and clean community that we're working on, and everybody, I put it on my soapbox here, everybody should be a part of that, every individual, every business, every governmental entity, so one of the things we're really trying to focus on is the alley because it was a mess, and so we're trying to do our part. We're trying to work with CR&R, keeping up all the dumpsters, keeping all those pressure cleaned. But then there's the educational component, even with the restaurant, and all the way down to people working in the restaurants because they may get a new staff member and they don't know, hey, I got to break this cardboard box down, so they may not be instructed. So there's all kinds of help and effort that we need to work with everybody to make this thing work. So that's, and we're making progress, but we're just not making the progress we want to see. And one of the things that we did achieve was the Island Company was going to allow us to put a camera down the alley. So that was at our last meeting, so we can do that. We can at least see what is the activities actually happening, and then we can start having some friendly discussions with some of the people that are being the offenders, so we can target that approach, okay?
Might be good for law enforcement, too. Don't tell them what goes on in that alley, right?
Wow, hello. Can I just ask you to amend your motion to also include that the clock doesn't reset every year?
I will so amend.
So are we proposing, though, that there would be a cap on the...
2,500.
2,500.
I think that the cap already says 2,500 per year, doesn't it?
Right.
That's what
And why is that? So you get to the point where you're so bad, we just say we're not going to fine you anymore?
No, it's 2,500, 2,500, 2,500,
2,500, 2,500. It doesn't...
But right now, it's per year.
Yes.
In other words, the max, so as a business decision, okay, I can spend 2,500 or I could, or not. Whereas it seems to me that if you keep violating, you should continue to be fined.
Oh, yes.
Without a max.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So essentially, fourth and subsequent violations would thus be $1,000.
I think it just encourages somebody to make a business decision. It's $2,500. It's cheaper for me to pay the $2,500 than it is to institute training and deal with, I mean, $2,500 is a chunk of change to me, but it might not be to somebody who's engaged in a business.
So tweak this number D that says fourth and subsequent, right?
So the first violation's a warning, the second violation is 500, the third violation is 1,000.
The fourth and subsequent are $2,500. And not in a 12-month period.
Each. $2,500 each.
Right.
That seems a little much. I would say subsequent violations would be 500 each.
Or subsequent violations increase by $500 each.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Instead of the $50 each.
Okay.
So it goes from $2,500 to $3,000 and to $3,500 to, okay.
But then it doesn't have the total civil penalties assessed over a 12-month period shall not exceed $2,500.
Yeah, so
that goes away.
That goes away. Yeah. And then delinquent assessments, what the heck? Okay, is that good enough?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll second. Can I just have you look at E, though, right there where it's delinquent assessments? So that would go up to $500 too, instead of the 50? In E?
Shall result in an additional penalty of $50 for late.
For being late.
So $50.
No, I think 50 is.
$50 for a late notice, but within 30 days, but then, so then what? So each 30 days that it's late, it's $50? Is that how it works? Oh.
Well, presumably after the first warning and the imposition of $50 that they don't pay, then
we're going for a civil action.
We go in court action.
Got it.
Collect.
We've never gotten to the fourth violation, just so you know.
Oh, well, that's good.
All righty.
Okay. So do we need to finish that? I seconded that. Do we need to do a vote on that to continue
So it's a motion to continue.
Yeah.
We've had a first, we've had a second, with some direction for staff to make some new revisions.
Correct. Is there a motion and a second? Comments from the community? Call for the vote. Okay.
All ayes.
Thank you. Item number 9.
Okay, number 9, this is a report on the emergency repairs of South Beach seawall. So during the October 31st special meeting of City Council, you approved expenditure to conduct emergency repairs South Beach seawall, not to exceed the sum of $200,000. So immediately after that, then we went out and we engaged with a contract with Eagle Lift. Eagle Lift was a firm that stabilized soils and had done remediation type work. The last project they did right before us was at the LA Harbor to stabilize a seawall. Same kind of situation that we were facing. So phase 1 of the seawall repair is complete. The work consisted of stabilizing and filling voids in the land side of the seawall in the failed area at South Beach. We additionally injected foam, like I said, what we would do to stabilize under the footing. We went to the depth of 5 feet below the footing. And we did that from both sides of the wall where we got in there before we filled the big void on South Beach, so we get in there and attack, because that was the main problem, one that kept on reoccurring. And we did that, and then we also went on the water side and at locations on South Beach and North Beach and injected foam underneath the footing so that we stabilized that aggregate, that sand, so that we wouldn't see the movement. So phase 2 is to place a temporary rock buttress. Okay, so that's a pile of rock, kind of like our revetment. But the intent of that is really just to protect that seawall that's failed there, so for the winter storms, so it can survive the winter storms. And then phase 3 would be actually replacing that 50, 60 foot of seawall, and we're trying to get that done if we can get an emergency permit to get that segment done from Coastal Commission before Memorial Day, so that we're ready to go for the summer. It seems like a pretty straightforward project as long as we can get that permit. They did work very good with us to get the initial work done and even let us place the rock when we used the term temporary. That was really the magic word for them to allow us to do that work. So you allocated 200,000, we're below that right now. I think to get with the rock in there, we'll be below that. But it could be likely when we get into that piece of that seawall repair, I may be coming in, once I get that engineering done, and asking for a little more funding on that. So we'll see once I get the rock done. It was at this, got Thanksgiving coming up, we were trying to get it done this week. But Jordahl Construction said that they would help us with their excavator, and the rock's available at the quarry, and we need, about 60 ton of rock to go put in that 1/4. From there, we can put that rail back up in a temporary nature there and get rid of that orange rail there and make it look good all the way till we do that seawall repair. Okay, so that's what our intent is. During the last 2 events here, after that, it held up very well.
Yeah, great.
So it was very good news. Okay?
Great job. Yep.
Don't go anywhere, Bob.
I know.
Annie, I don't know if you made the announcement of, this was also a housing authority?
Yes, I
You
did.
did? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Item number 10, we're here to talk about and give you an update on the 206 East Whitley remodel update. And again, for the viewers at home, just give a little background summary here quick. So during the February 6, 2018 City Council meeting, the City Council, acting as the Housing Authority, requested staff to develop a plan to rehabilitate the property at 206 East Whitley that we've held for many years, and the intent was for low, moderate income residents that we could lease that to. And so during the March 6, 2018 meeting, Council, again acting as Housing Authority, directed some of the renovation options that I had presented at a couple different levels. And you gave us direction to develop plans that provide safety repairs and a moderate remodel, which includes a new kitchen and bath facilities, paint, floor coverings, fixtures, and such, to make it safe and clean housing. Develop plans for rerouting the property sewer line, solicit bids for the construction, make application of Southern California Edison to be placed on the water allocation list, develop a plan that considers construction of additional 5 units and replacement of the cottage unit at a later date to expand to a total of 10 units. And those improvements were intended to be an interim step before a larger scale renovation that would include the development up to 10 units, and that would be architecturally consistent. So we would initially do that first remodel, so we get the inside nice and clean, and then if we built the additional 6 units, then we could make it all look like one complex, is what the intent. So at the June 19, 2018 City Council meeting, again acting as a housing authority, we reassessed that, and we reassessed that previous decision, directed staff to conduct more robust renovations for a sum not to exceed $300,000. With this direction, item number 4 would no longer be pursued, and that would be the development of additional 5 units at this time, was what our understanding was. But we proceed ahead with items 1, 2, and 3, which is a more robust, safety repair of the sewer, and then get on the water allocation list in case we wanted to proceed with number 4 at a later date. Yeah, because even getting on the allocation list doesn't mean that we have to do that. It just gets us in line in the queue. So we engaged the services of the architectural firm of Camas and Keller to develop the construction documents, and that's what you have in front of you today and tonight. And so what the architect came up with, he came up with 2 options, and really, and what you see in this packet, and for anybody in the public, we also have it, you can't see it up on the screen, there's a stack over there on the table of this same thing in hard copy. So you have an estimate, and you have 17 pages of a set of plans that has 2 options in it. And really the plans, if you look at them, a lot of it is similar between the 2 options. So just let me kind of point out what the difference is here. So they both consider changing all the windows. The windows in this is 1970 vintage, thin, 1 single pane, aluminum frame, no energy efficiency, and they don't seal up. Yeah, they're
Slat windows, yeah.
Yeah, terrible. So, new kitchen, new bathroom, so, pretty much gutting the cabinets out and the appliances and all the fixtures and clean those up. New floor coverings, new fixtures like light fixtures, plugs, switches and all those, because they're all, 40 years old plus. Rehabilitate the decks and the stairs there because they're rotten, okay? So we got to take them off either way, so what do we do with that? And then redo the storage underneath and possibly the laundry room, so there's some options there. So the main difference in these two sets of plans is if you compare pages 6 and 10, and that's really where you can see the difference. If you look at the hard copy and...
Are you going by the sheet number?
Yeah, sheet 6.
Okay.
And it's right in the right-hand corner, lower right-hand corner, and it's the floor plans. So sheet 6 and 10. So one says proposed floor plan option 1.
Right. I'm not seeing a whole lot of, there's something here right in the center of the building.
Okay, and really what it is, if you go to the center of the building right now, there's an outside deck. It's a wooden deck, and it's cantilevered out, and there's 2 stairways, one on each side. Those stairs are rotten. The deck is rotten. And so what the architect came out and he says, I can replace that, and I only want to put 1 stairway. If I'm going to get one, I'm going to get a good stairway, a wide stairway, and do it only on one side of the building instead of building 2 stairways and maintaining 2 stairways. So that was his alternative there. But also, he was bringing, as you go to option 2, he didn't bring out the building because he actually brought out the entryways onto that new deck and built new walls and put a new shed roof, which is right now when you go into the front of the building, there's an aluminum awning over that deck. So he was going to make a permanent roof. And what it did is it allowed more space at the front entry, if you can see, to allow washer and dryers in each of the units instead of downstairs below, okay, in there. And then it also allowed like an office space in the hallway. So
I have a question about that, the washer and dryer.
Okay.
If they're low and moderate income units and they each have a washer and dryer, wouldn't we be better off doing a washer and dryer unit downstairs?
We have that right now, okay?
Yeah, because that would be less, because all of these numbers that you have here doesn't have a total, because it's like...
Yeah, it's at the very back. We'll discuss that next.
Okay, so I guess if that's a way to save a little bit of money, I would think maybe just have a laundry room for everyone. I don't know, just a thought.
That's what we have right now. And I guess we can, maybe I can back up. Maybe I got a little bit too fast here. I was just trying to show you what the differences are. Now, that being said, if we go to sheet 2, and that's the demo plan, you can see what we're demoing there, just kind of walking you through this. Sorry I'm making you flip, if you bear with me for 5 minutes, I think I can walk you through the project. So the red lines, we actually are removing. And then, so like on the outside walls, we're removing those and putting new windows, okay? And then restuccoing that.
Right.
And we're removing those outside toward the rear or the top of the page. Those are the existing decks. They're small decks. And there's a pretty large backyard there that has a view. Right. And this is, Avalon, you're not taking advantage of that, on your upper unit, or because even your first floor unit is above the ground level, by feet, like 8 feet. And then the upper unit, is way up there. So it seems like you at least want to provide that square footage on an outside, because it makes the unit bigger for cheap. You don't put a roof over that or anything. It's basically just an outside deck in 2 levels, okay? And you can see that we're demoing the stairs on the front and demoing the kitchen cabinets. That's all the red lines. And demoing the bathrooms.
Quick question for you. Is this getting fire suppression system in? Looks like it meets the requirements to me.
Yes, we can put a fire suppression system. We'll get that in the,
That's going in.
yeah, anything we do, we need to do it.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because it's a duplex, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that that's still going to happen. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
And then if you go to sheet 3, that's the bottom floor where you have, it says resident storage. That's where the washer and dryers are right now. And that's your typical laundromat. Those are coin, right now, coin washer dryers. Some of them work, some of them don't, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, that is another maintenance aspect that you would have to deal with. So,
But if they're in the individual units, we're still responsible for them anyway. So we would be responsible for less.
yeah, we'd be getting
I mean, you
probably,
could charge them a nickel, it doesn't matter what the cost be, you know, it doesn't have to be expensive to do laundry, perhaps.
and then that unit to the left is currently a non-conforming 6'3" ceiling, moldy. Yeah, it's something that we need to deal with, you know, so it's not, and so that's why even in either alternative, we really said that was the maintenance workshop for the whole building, where you'd have the lawnmower, all the tools, all the, whatever you needed for your supplies would be there right on site, you know, and so then we were trying to work for resident storage too, you know, so that was some of the alternatives that, everybody has something, you know, but at least, you know, some of these units you would, you know, especially when we have that space underneath that's already built, is how can we make you a locker to have some of that stuff, you know, stored for you. Okay? And then if you look at page 5, you can see where we're demoing the back again. You can see the existing decks. So that's what's there. Okay. Now let's go to option 1. You can see the floor plan on page 6. Bear with me for about another 3 minutes here, and I think we can get through this. So you can see that it has 2 bedrooms on the right-hand side there. Has kitchen, has a, okay. And dining room. It has the full deck on the back versus it's probably a 5x8 deck now at most. So you can see that if there's anything that seems like good bang for your buck on square footage, it's those decks in the back.
And what is of that drawing on the left, what is that whole width across? How many feet is that? I mean, if there's numbers there, I sure as hell can't see.
You know, I'm sorry that this didn't have the dimensions here. I have so many plans that we had, everything CAD scaled out.
Yeah, it looks like about 10 feet, if you compare it to the other things that do have dimensions, like the bedroom's a 10 by 10.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 by 15.
Yeah, it's considerable when you think about the living space. It adds almost like a whole nother outside room to it.
Don't give anybody any ideas.
Okay. And then as you get where we had just the resident storage underneath, that's when we moved the washer and dryers upstairs. That's on page 7. But that can be reworked. There's plenty of room underneath the house to do any of this stuff. So that's why I was kind of looking at general check-in direction from you tonight. Okay, and then as you get to sheet 8, you can see what the new front's going to look like versus the stairway on each side. Now it's going to have one stairway that's wider. And so you see, provide new stairs, guardrails. One of the things that the architect added was a Dutch door. That was interesting. I haven't seen a Dutch door for a long time, but that would be definitely something Avalon kind of like, you know, where you have...
Since we don't need screens.
Yeah, you just have the top of the door open, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, but then you can see what it looks like. It's cable rails he's talking about for sheet 9 for the back. That's your decks. You can see the windows got bigger.
This will be some of the nicest housing in Avalon.
Okay, so I guess let's go back to the front sheet. And Dan, yeah, I'm just trying to put the estimate. So this is the dollars. So So really, I guess that's what's pushing this, right?
I love that.
Well,
Yeah, I didn't see total. I didn't see a
Yeah, no,
total.
this-
Only could figure out the total in a heartbeat.
so, and this was the designer's concept. Yeah, this is, this is the kind of things that you can put in their tile. Prefab cabinets. You're going to save some money with prefab cabinets. You're looking for the durability of tile.
What about a handicap accessible unit?
That, on the bottom floor, both of those will be handicap accessible. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that comes right from that concrete entry. At least to the best of our ability, we make that concrete at least within close to 5%. Okay? Because even though in the back, they're way off the ground, right as you come into the front entry, that's coming off a piece of concrete, and so that would be accessible to an ADA unit.
I don't think this,
Okay.
is this an ADA bathroom?
We can make it an ADA bathroom if that's what's desired.
Looking at the
You probably
top
should at
or
least
the bottom?
on the bottom floor, you probably should do one.
Yeah, I would recommend that one be ADA accessible.
Yeah.
So then at the one of those single units, that's where you make that,
Right.
yeah.
Yes, and then what about,
we
okay, but
need
then if
to
we have the laundromat in the back underneath, how do they have to have access to that, or maybe that one has a stackable?
Or maybe that one has a stackable.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, I can look at some of those options.
No, so what's the total?
Okay, so the budget numbers.
I can read the little numbers.
So this is per unit. If you add all of this up right now, and what David Keller, the architect, said is this is fat right now, but it's he talked to a general contractor, and and once he refines it, he thinks he could bring the prices down. But this is almost $400,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you already done the sewer?
No,
No.
doesn't include
No.
the sewer.
So we had,
That's to be determined, it's the bottom.
Yeah, we had put 30,000 to that, but I think we can get that done much cheaper because we're really in the dirt and in the pavers, and it's a pretty straight run. So,
did they look at any-
I guess what I'm hearing is maybe whittle it down, that we don't want to do the front entry redo. We want to keep the washer and dryers down below. That's going to save us money.
Well, you know what, Bob, why don't you finish your presentation and then let each of us weigh in,
Okay.
rather than trying to.
I'm sorry.
I definitely
Okay.
have opinions about this.
Okay, well, the piece I'm on right now is the budget numbers, okay? So the kitchen remodel is $15,000 a unit. You can see the, up on
So
your hard
that's
copy.
60K.
That's 60K.
Okay.
And I think that at some point, your kitchens are going to need to be remodeled. Remember that we were trying to get these to be safe, clean, but also very low maintenance. Well,
Right.
Once we got it, it's not go in there and say, oh, this door is falling off this cabinet, or this drawer doesn't work, or this appliance doesn't work, or this sink doesn't work, So that's what we're trying to get it up to, at least that level. It may not be something that's the highest level of cabinet we can get.
Right.
It's a very moderate, but at least we have those included.
Right.
And the same thing for the bathroom, so you're going to gut those, and you're going to be down to drywall.
So
You're gonna make sure that the
9,500.
plumbing is good, and it's not, corroded, in your drains, and also in your supply lines. Okay? And then the rest of the stuff is just kind of finished carpentry kind of stuff, just to make sure that you're efficiently, when you go in there, stuff is very tired. Some of the cabinets and doors and all this kind of thing, very tired. So this is the time, if you're going to go in there and do it, you do it at one shot. New HVAC unit, you may, that's considering that you're putting both the AC and the heat. Right now, it has a wall furnace. If you want to just replace the wall furnace, those are very cheap. And, and we would call that good. And that right there is $10,500 per unit.
That's 40K, 42K.
That's way high.
Washer and dryer closet
Way
per
high.
unit, the architect has $4,500.
Do you know why it's so much? Is it the electric?
It's
The electric has to be
getting
all upgraded?
replumb everything, reconfigure, and get it, so you're paying that one time, that high cost. Bathrooms,
Because the
kitchens-
basement's huge, so in terms of, getting to the plumbing and...
Let you let him go through the program and then...
Oh, okay, all right. Just had a specific question, but thanks. Oh, wait, I'll keep quiet.
So, new entry framing, $37,000, okay? Exterior landscaping, that's a lot of that, the sidewalk needs to be in there, but the planning can be moderate, sprinklers can be moderate. And he has 25.5 for that. It does need a coat of paint on the outside, especially after we put new windows in. But I would think that at a minimum level, you're going to want to have new windows. You're going to have at least the doors have some significant treatment to them, if not being replaced. And then you're going to re-stucco around those windows and then get a good coat of paint and seal everything up, caulk everything up. And then on the outside, you're going to replace some concrete and get it all nice and safe. And you're going to put a new stairway in at the front and a new deck at the front. And then in the back, you can choose to remove and replace the decks at the same size, or you can put the larger decks. So that gets you pretty much the outside. Now we go inside. You can say floor coverings, cabinets, plumbing, electrical, bathrooms, there'd be a kitchen and the bathrooms. So I would think those would be at your minimum level. So really I'm looking for, are we heading in the right direction? Is with the alternative that extended the entryway out and that put the decks on. If this thing got to be $350, is that, but you're getting those benefits out of it, is that still not as cost prohibitive, I guess? It's really, I think the cost is, I think, the driving factor here for you. Otherwise, I can give you good bang for the buck.
Now it's your turn.
Are we bringing it
Maybe
up
somebody
here
else
now?
wants to speak first.
No, I am very interested to hear. I know you have some similar opinions, so I'm ready for you.
So I appreciate the effort, but I think that we've lost sight of what we're trying to do here, and I want to harken back to, I think, what Scott Schmeckpepper pointed out so well at the last meeting. We have people who desperately need housing. They don't need Beverly Hills or even Santa Monica. They need just basic, clean housing. And so there's just a lot of items here where I feel like we're going to spend $100,000 per unit here, which is going to eliminate the ability to provide other units or fix up other units. So I feel that the kitchen remodels, this is way over the top. You could go to IKEA and buy a decent kitchen cabinets for $2,000. I've been in the bathrooms. I used to take Meals on Wheels to Mr. Beaumont. He kept up this property. Those bathrooms, yes, they are dated, the tile is dated, but they're serviceable, they work, they're fine. I just don't see, for the age of this building and what we're going to be using it for, that it makes sense. The HVACs, you put fans in the rooms. We have, maybe 4 nights out of a summer where it's uncomfortable in terms of putting in an entire. And the balconies, I hate to say it, but these people are going to have amazing ocean views. To spend $13,000 per unit to put a deck, I think we could do nice ironwork in front of windows that open in so that they'd still be able to have the fresh air. Those are kind of the things that I think we need to get more bare bones with this project. And the washer and dryer, I didn't realize that the plumbing and the electrical would be that much. So, there might be a way to allocate a stackable so it's not a communal where each person has theirs in that room that's downstairs, but I even think that seems to be over the top expenditure for what we're trying to do here.
Hate to say it, I agree with you.
Yeah, I do too. No.
Why?
Yeah. And it'll take less time.
Right. I definitely, the design for the one stair, I think that really is good. That looks good.
So the stairways need to come off anyway, and the balconies need to come off anyway because they're rotten. So whatever we choose to replace, they're no good right now.
And they
then-
also have a front
And then the
yard.
windows are not very good.
Of course.
Yeah, no, the windows, they definitely need to be replaced. That's just.
Right. Do you, Cindy, I don't know if you can comment, but those kind of HVAC units like we have, is that
Well,
right?
I mean, I think that that's extremely high.
Yeah, well, like I said,
But, yeah.
this is at the very high end of it, okay?
Yeah, no,
wasn't trying to shock
I
you.
understood that, but it is extremely high. You could do all 4 units for that price, so.
It's one block off the beach, basically. I mean, you
Oh, they're
know,
gonna
it's
have
gonna-
big-
there are breezes, it's.
I think
Right.
heat is probably more important than cold.
But I do agree with Councilmember Albers in the sense that, I don't think that that should be on this go-around. I think the bare bones to get these units up and running and rented.
Okay. So, this is pared down a little bit.
Pare down, yeah.
So,
that's a
okay,
good
let's
way to
give them
say
a
it.
budget.
Yeah, I mean, so
200K?
kitchen remodel. So you want me, right now, the doors are,
Oh, yeah, I mean, the cabinets need to be replaced.
okay, so
But
you want a economy.
Is there currently
Economy
garbage?
model, okay.
Is there currently garbage disposal?
Yeah, I believe there is.
Okay. I've never had one on Catalina. Anyway.
And I don't know that, let me ask this question. Did Camus and Keller actually go out and do cost estimates? Is that where they came up with their
Yes,
numbers, or
he
is it
actually
just
went
sort
to
of a?
He went to a general contractor, and in his email to me, he said, this is high, right now, this Catalina factor, and so right now, he goes, after I refine the plans, because he's got these two, that's why we want to check in with you, and then we
Yeah.
refine them, and then we start speccing, and we can see if we're on the right track. That's why I was testing the waters, is this too much over the top? Yes.
But I think also, I might be confused in prior comments that Public Works was going to be doing a lot of the work, and now are we saying that we're having a general contractor come in and do all the work?
Once I'm getting to this level of project, I mean, I'm not going to be able, by code, to be able to get in and do this.
Because you're talking wall demos.
Yeah, and this, I mean, I'm just outside of public contract code.
You're going to need a
With the-
contractor with appropriate licensing.
Okay,
And we may not have
I
that
understand.
It's not
I understand.
owner-occupied.
What's that?
It's not owner-occupied.
So I don't think that it's fair for us to say, you need to keep each kitchen remodel under $3,000. I think it's for you to come back with Camus and Keller and to say, this might be the Palos Verdes version. We need the low, moderate income version.
Okay. That's fair.
That's what I would request.
Yeah.
And also taking into consideration maybe not rebuilding balconies. I would like to move forward with exterior painting because I think
Oh,
that
yeah.
just,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
that
absolutely.
helps.
Right.
But also not doing the HVAC units. And it just seems like, to me, it seems like what we're doing is basically going in and gutting all 4 units and starting over, and I just don't think that we needed to do that.
But for having
Because you're talking about new
I want to have a
walls, new
discussion about all the
everything.
demo that's for, because admittedly, those upstairs units are a rail car, but you're going to have a family, and what happens is you lose all this space to create a hallway through the second bedroom. 10 by 10 is a tiny room, especially if you're talking 2 kids.
9 by 10.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So right now, what they have is accordion
I
doors.
mean, the master bedroom's huge, but the,
Yeah, so that second one, in those 2-bedroom units, there's
Right.
accordion doors right now, and so
right.
that's,
I
we're
mean,
trying to do
it needs-
something.
I mean, it needs some privacy,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree, but the proposal that they're making here is to create a full wall.
Yeah, whether that was it, and it's still flexible, but I think also what David Keller was trying to do was also, people maybe needed a desk space or something that they would use, and so that kind of gave it that small little third kind of multi-purpose
That area-
right in the
that
hall.
area
So you
outside
put
of that bedroom there.
You put the chair in, and then you can walk by it, you're only 2 foot wide for a desk unit, but then as you need to spread out, it kind of takes up the whole hallway.
I'm just assuming that
Flexible.
a 2-bedroom unit is going to go to a family that's got 1 or 2 or 3 kids that are in that
Yes.
bedroom.
Well, maybe they get the master then. I mean, well, where the washer and dryers are, maybe you could just...
As opposed to just changing it out so that there's clearly doors that separate them as opposed to that accordion. That was weird.
My sheet number 6 has gone away.
But I think you kind of know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So exterior landscaping, 25K, most of that'll go away. The storage room, maybe something could be done with it, but not that much, so that people can put some totes in there or whatever, or bicycles, or, they got a big old front yard too, I mean.
Right now, yes. If you don't build other units there, yeah, there's.
Okay, we'll cut down
please.
on the washer and dryer. Lighting, I guess if you got a light, you got a light. Got to give them a light. But we do need to provide some form of heat, because that's habitability.
Right.
So if we're using those, if those
the wall heaters
are still working fine for now, then we use those.
Or replace them.
Or replace if it's not
updated.
working.
Yeah, I think
They're-
for safety,
like
for
a wall
safety,
heater.
we want to put, newer.
It's like $350 for a wall heater, a brand new one. And those are-
I think ceiling fans in the
Ceiling fans
in
are
the
very
bedrooms
good.
in the living room would do the trick.
Okay.
No. And there's not going to get they don't get a lot of that sun on that.
Right.
So I think the next thing is we'll take another stab at this, and then we'll come back and visit you again and see if we're on the right track at that point. Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay?
Great. Thank you. I know this is a lot of work. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, then the next one.
Does he still have that nod? You gave him a $300,000 ballpark from before. Is that still his ballpark?
Do we want to do that or go down a little lower? Because we still got to do the sewer, right?
Yeah, you still got to do the sewer. I thought we were hoping that the 300 was going to include everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our budget, 300. And
There you go.
Well, I'm sure we'll fudge that a little bit, but...
see what we can do with that.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you. Because I thought you said at one point the sewer was like 150K, and then you came back and said, oh, no, it's not 150K.
No, I gave you an estimate of $30,000 because we're in the dirt, on the side, going down. Once we get in the streets, we're in the pavers in East Whitley, and we know where it's going to tie in.
Right, okay. Oh, so okay, cool. All righty, item number 11.
Okay, item number 11, Council, I believe in March 2018 meeting, directed staff to reach out to a couple of the local entities like Bird Park Housing and Beacon Hill, and then Eucalyptus Garden, to see if they could give us a proposal for several things like the lottery guidelines, the screening and selection of qualified applicants, the annual oversight, and other requirements that might be required. I also included RSG in that, just to make it so I could get like 3 comparisons to bring to council. We reached out a total of 3 times, and we only got 1 response, and that was with RSG. And they have outlined, they divided it up. There were the first 3 tasks and then 3 additional tasks to be completed. So I know you have it all in front of you, and I don't need to go through each one unless you'd like me to.
Comments, Council?
And they are the ones, RSG did do our applicant screening and qualifications when we did the first-time homeowners program.
I'm going to return to my theme. This is 4 units.
I know.
Yeah.
4 units. I spoke with the housing, I forget his title, in Glendale. They do a lottery. I pulled the procedures from San Francisco, Santa Barbara, and Glendale, and I spoke to him, and I'm willing to volunteer my time. I just think this is an obscene amount of money for what we're proposing. The application form is very easy. I would suggest that we do preferential lottery that gives preference for, we had already talked about, full-time residents, have another preferential for disabled. And it's not that hard to run the lottery, and I'll come back with the procedure and the proposal.
I agree. I thought it was...
Bird Park has a form. I mean, as an employer, I had to sign off on it for an employee of mine that worked there. It's a simple form to do where they reassert under penalty of perjury where they work, what they're making, whether they have any other sources of income. I just think at this point that it makes sense to try to do this in-house.
could it include reviewing up to 20 pre-applications and 10 full applications? Well, what if we got 40? They're not going to look at them, or they're going to charge us?
Well, the way that you work the lottery is that you assign, so you get all the applications in. You don't do anything with the applications. You run the lottery, you pull the lottery winners, and then you start evaluating them. And everybody's told, if you don't have your documents ready, you lose your place and you move on to the next one.
Right.
I volunteer, Pam.
So let me just ask a question of staff then. What is, first of all, which department would be running this? And secondly, what is, I mean, yes, it's easier to pay somebody else to do it, but what is staff's concern as to bringing it in-house?
I'm going to make a statement, and I hope it's not a down put on anybody. We have had this piece of property for 10 years, and for whatever reasons, when we first purchased it, why it was never taken over by staff, I have no idea. Back then, it's a lot of money. So I'm not saying you can't do it, Pam, but I like your question, Cindy, who is going to do this program?
Right.
And if you, I don't know which department could take that on. Certainly, I don't know.
Okay, I would even suggest, so you're just worried about who's going to collect the rent and what do you do if somebody isn't paying the rent?
No.
CVR. I mean, you know,
No,
we
I'm
have
not.
CIVR or somebody. No? That's not what you're worried about?
No, this whole process here, Pam. I do not know what the government regulations are on low and mod housing. What are our requirements that I'm not going to speak to something that I don't know all of.
Yeah, no.
But haven't we got
It's
some of
right
that
on
from
the
you all?
application form from Glendale, which is in Los Angeles County. It's just a percentage of the thing. That's why I volunteered, because I do know it.
And it'll show you the documents they need to produce and blah, blah, blah.
Right, and then we can look at it and see, is this something that's beyond us? But when I read through it, I thought, you know what, for 4 units, this is not an overwhelming process that we should be able to do here. And then if we find out we can't, then we know and we go to
Shame on the
somebody
city
else.
if it's easy that they haven't done it before this. Shame on us.
Yeah, exactly. And manage and operating, so they're on the mainland and they operated from over town, and so there's an issue. I mean, are they gonna, so somebody...
Well, I think property management is something that we want to look at. So who's going to, who's going to be responsible if something breaks?
And I believe in our discussion that one of the tenants that was going to occupy one of the 4 units was going to be the manager of that property, and they would be talented to fix things.
That's going to be tough if it's a lottery.
I don't think that unit's not a lottery unit.
Right.
But they have to be low income, or they have to meet the income standard.
Wasn't that specifically looked at as possibly for a city staff member?
No, because I think they're exempt. I think you can exempt somebody from the low mod if they are an on-site manager.
Oh, okay, for 3 years.
Yes, I think that's what you said before, is that they would be
That was the discussion we had, is there was going to be 1 unit that we possibly could put somebody that would be a manager and that would be exempt.
Okay,
for that reason.
for some reason, that person is no longer in our employ, what do we do?
Good question.
I think that if
You can't
they-
cook him out, that sounds like somebody else.
well, I think considering circumstances, you possibly could.
I'm not sure you can remove someone from their housing based upon their no longer wanting to employ them at the city.
Well, how does every other employer in town do it then?
Well, I think there are different rules for
Private city?
government
Private
housing
versus
versus private housing. I would also suggest that although creating the form or filling out the form is relatively simple, actually tracking down the information, going back and forth with the applicants, we have found we're just in doing the down payment assistance program, trying to get all of the information and helping people through that process is very labor intensive.
You got time, huh?
It's 4 units.
I know. So we limit the number of applications to the first lottery, yeah, and then if, whoops, we don't get them, we draw more, right? I mean, if they don't fit.
No, I mean, you take as many applications as you want. I mean,
take
it's
as many
somebody
as you
else
want,
is
but-
filling out the application.
Yeah, but
That's not
you're just having to
So
do
the
4 or 5 at a
screening,
time.
right, you just do.
Yeah.
And whoops,
limited number
they
of
don't,
people
none of
at
those
a time.
qualify, then you pull a couple more.
Particularly since we're doing a, residential preference, so people's information is going to be here, I would suspect that.
Well, and then on the other part of the maintenance, maybe if there's someone under the city employee that we give them a bump in their, to be that maintenance person or something like that, off
And
hours.
when you draft your guidelines or however it is you want to go about doing this lottery, I would caution you about a residential preference. I think we've talked about that in the past. There are fair housing rules that limit your ability to focus on a residential preference. You can look at an employment preference for someone who's employed on the island, but limiting it to someone who lives on the island currently may run afoul of fair housing laws, both state and federal.
And that's what I meant to say. I mean, that, the lotteries that I looked at had an employment preference.
An employment preference, not a
Yeah.
residential preference.
Okay, right. But Uncle Bob Greenlow, go ahead, you stood up.
We do have city employees that, remember that was part of the discussion, was that we were trying to help low mod, but also we have employee housing, there is, where we don't have sufficient housing either, and is there somebody on, that has maintenance skills that you can target that piece of that? And if they weren't in the employee of the city after the lease ended for that year, they would be out. I would suggest that, it doesn't say you have to continue your lease, because the lease is for a certain duration, so then that problem would be over with.
Well, if they don't have to be low in mod or an income, you could probably do that, but on these others, it's just renewable every year if they qualify. But these people, this person's family wouldn't have to qualify
Wouldn't have to qualify
income-wise,
it.
and then
Part of their rent would be for the maintenance duties,
Yeah.
part of it. I'm not saying it would be free rent.
Yeah.
We'd have to see what that pencils out, but for
Then
what
you-
they're trying to
yeah.
do.
Then
But
you're, then you're
you would
having to, then you're having to decide who are those qualified city employees that could do the work, and that's not going to be pleasant for you.
I think this is all getting into not what we're here to discuss tonight, so let's push that
But
to
it
other
is-
conversation.
okay.
But as far as this contract goes, I really had wished that this came in at a quarter of the amount, because it's just too much.
Right, I agree.
So are we suggesting 100,000 then?
No.
No, I'm suggesting that this $28,000.
Oh, no, we're talking about the
Oh, God. Poor Paul.
No. We're talking about this contract now. I'm bringing us back around. We're in the weeds on too many things tonight. So, I
I'm just
don't
willing
feel
to take a
comfortable.
stab at it. We, obviously, we're not renting these places next week. We have a little time to play with this. Let me bring something back at the next meeting. We'll take a look at it and see and it'll give the city manager an opportunity to look at and see, is there somebody within the number of administrative assistants that we have in our executive suite who might be able to take this on as an opportunity to learn something new, do something different.
Exactly. Okay. Okay. And now we're going to close session.
Do we need to finalize something on this? Are we just carrying it over, or what are we?
We're
denying it?
Continue it over?
Well, she wasn't asking for us to approve the RSG thing, right? It was just to discuss it?
No, we were looking for you to review the proposal.
Okay, so we reviewed the proposal, and when...
The recommended action is to authorize the city manager to accept the proposal for a not-to-exceed amount with RSG to provide the services.
We're not going to do that.
That's a recommended action.
Okay.
So that's what I'm
So
saying. Do we need?
Is there a motion to do that?
No.
No.
Hearing none, it fails for lack of a motion, and the item just goes away.
Okay, and the item will come back probably whenever Pam feels it can come back, after she does some homework. Okay?
Good job.
And now we're going to close session. And we want to say good night to Tony and good night to Val as well.
And happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Hold on, before we go into closed session, just for the record, we're going into closed session for a conference with labor negotiators, with the agency designated representative being city manager Denise Ratty, and the employee organizations are International Association of Firefighters Local 2295 and the unrepresented confidential employees.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I'm stopping by the little girl going away.
Okay.
not listed anymore.
Huh?
Not listed anymore.
Are we back on? Oh, no, Alex is going to get us on just
There you
that.
go.
Hope we sleep there. Not running around the house cooking, my wife's sleeping.
We are back from closed session.
We have no reportable action.
Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving, Tony, Val, and everybody else.
Alex.
You're gonna be going tomorrow? You're going, all right?
Not till Friday. Meeting adjourned.
And are you going to Cuba?
Yep.
Oh, great. Oh, I want to hear about it.